This is the ultimate compilation. The best, the weirdest, the most useless moments, all in one video. Whether you're new here or a true fan, you're in for a ride. Welcome to The Useless Show Mega Compilation.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
Ever wondered how chainsaws, Play-Doh, and ancient Chinese emperors are connected? No? Well, you're about to find out anyway. From chainsaws designed for childbirth, yes, seriously, to professional fart sniffers hired by royalty, history is weirder than you think. So buckle up, because we're diving into the strangest facts you never knew you needed. Let's get started. Some birds sing in actual musical scales. The hermit thrush naturally sings in harmonic structures that match human music theory, meaning nature itself figured out melodies before we did. So while humans spent centuries trying to invent music notation, birds were out there casually dropping perfect tunes without even trying. Venus spins the wrong way and takes longer to rotate on its axis than it does to orbit the sun. This means a day on Venus is longer than a year there. If you lived on Venus, you'd have to wait months just to see the sun rise again. Of course, if you manage to survive the toxic atmosphere and crushing pressure. The number 2 used to be feared in ancient times because it represented duality, good and evil, life and death. Some philosophers thought 2 was unstable and unnatural, preferring the perfection of 3. Meanwhile, today, 2 is just known for its sad existence as the thing that comes before a gold medal. The chainsaw was originally invented for childbirth. Yes, you read that right. Before C-sections became common, 18th century doctors used a hand-cranked chainsaw to cut through pelvic bone during difficult births. Imagine going into labor and seeing a guy walk in with a mini chainsaw. And people say modern hospitals are scary. AI influencers make more money than real humans. Virtual influencers, who aren't even real people, now sign brand deals, model clothing, and get sponsorships. Meanwhile, actual humans are struggling to pay rent. The modern world's priorities are so twisted that an animated Instagram model might have better health insurance than you. The Slinky was meant to stabilize naval equipment. A mechanical engineer accidentally knocked a tension spring off a shelf, and instead of fixing ships, it did a little dance down the floor. That was the moment humanity decided, forget engineering, let's sell this as a toy. And just like that, chaos became entertainment. Some crystals vibrate so precisely that they keep time in your watch. Quartz crystals inside watches oscillate at 32,768 times per second to maintain accuracy. Basically, every time you check the time, you're trusting a tiny rock to be more reliable than your own sense of reality. And guess what? It is. Hot dogs can legally contain mechanically separated meat. That's a fancy way of saying it's a meat smoothie squeezed into a tube. This process scrapes every last bit of edible tissue from bones using high-pressure water jets. It's like nature's leftovers repackaged into a snack, and we all just accept it without question. People now have emotional support water bottles. Forget therapy pets. Hydration is the new self-care. Trendy, emotional support water bottles are so big they double as personal weights, and people panic if they forget them at home. In the neo-modern world, dehydration is apparently more terrifying than an actual crisis. Zeno's paradox suggests you can never actually reach your destination. It argues that if you keep dividing the distance to your goal in half, you'll always have some distance left to cover. So technically, walking across a room is mathematically impossible. And yet, here we are, somehow ignoring math and still making it to the fridge. Idealism suggests that physical objects only exist because our minds perceive them. If no one is looking at a tree, it might not actually be there. So if you ever lose your phone, don't blame yourself. Blame reality for failing to keep it in existence when you weren't paying attention. Ancient Egyptians wore scented wax cones on their heads. Instead of deodorant, they placed cones of perfumed wax on their heads, which melted throughout the day, keeping them smelling fresh or just really waxy. Nothing says ancient hygiene like slowly being covered in a floral-scented puddle of head goo. The Greeks held the original roast sessions. Public insults weren't just entertainment, they were a sport. Philosophers and poets competed to see who could destroy their opponent with words the best. If Socrates were alive today, he'd probably be the undefeated champion of Twitter clapbacks. Nihilism says that nothing matters, so why even bother? According to nihilists, life has no inherent meaning, the universe doesn't care, and everything is ultimately pointless. But hey, at least that means you're free to do whatever you want. Because in the grand scheme of things, your embarrassing middle school phase doesn't matter either. Play-Doh was originally a wallpaper cleaner. In the 1930s, coal heating left soot stains everywhere, so this soft, squishy putty was used to scrub walls clean. When coal heating faded, the product almost disappeared until someone realized kids love playing with it. And just like that, the world got a toy instead of spotless walls. Certain crystals can literally grow inside your body. Kidney stones are basically rogue mineral formations that treat your insides like a cave. Unlike those pretty geodes, these personal crystals don't make good decorations. They just make you regret every salty snack and soda you ever consumed. People pay real money for virtual clothes. Digital fashion is now a thing. People buy designer outfits for their online avatars, even if they'd never spend that much on real clothes. In the neo-modern era, you can be wearing sweatpants in real life while flexing a Gucci suit in the metaverse. Chinese emperors had professional fart sniffers. Since bad smells were believed to indicate illness, emperors hired specialists to sniff their bodily odors, including gas, to detect diseases early. Imagine being born into a noble family only to be told your destiny is to sniff royal farts for a living. Some Arab perfumes were aged in animal guts. Traditional perfumers sometimes used ambergris, a rare waxy substance from a sperm whale's intestines, to make scents last longer. So, that luxurious oud fragrance? It might have spent years marinating inside a giant sea creature before ending up on your skin. Sea stars use their water vascular system to extend tiny tube feet, which act like an army of suction cups. These little feet can pry open clamshells with relentless patience. It's like nature gave them the most overpowered lock-picking ability, except instead of cracking safes, they're out here robbing mollusks blind. The world's oldest known bonsai, the Ficus retusa, is over 1,000 years old and sits in an Italian museum. It has seen more history than most countries, and yet all it does is sit there in a tiny pot, minding its own business. If trees could talk, this one would probably have a lot to say about humanity's poor life choices. Some hydraulic presses can generate over 50,000 tons of force, enough to squish a car like it's made of Play-Doh. If medieval knights had gotten their hands on one, jousting would have been a much shorter and much more terrifying sport. Ancient Romans used urine as mouthwash. Yes, you read that right. They believed the ammonia in urine whitened teeth, so people actually paid for bottled pee to swish around. Imagine waking up in the morning and gargling with last night's bathroom trip. Minty fresh was definitely not a thing back then. The Aztecs had a serious chocolate obsession, but no sugar. They drank a bitter, spiced version of hot chocolate made with chili and cornmeal. It was so valuable that cacao beans were used as currency. Imagine buying a taco with a handful of chocolate beans and then drinking your salary with a side of burning lips. Burning perfumes was once a social status flex. Instead of just wearing perfume, wealthy Arabs would burn expensive bukur, which are scented wood chips in their homes, their clothes, and even their beards. The richer you were, the smokier you smelled. Basically, walking around like a human incense stick meant you had serious money. The simulation theory suggests we might all be living in a giant video game. According to some thinkers, our entire reality could be a super advanced simulation run by beings way smarter than us. If true, that means glitches, déjà vu, and weird coincidences might just be bugs in the system. Hopefully, whoever's controlling us doesn't rage quit. The ship of Theseus problem asks if something is still the same thing if you replace all its parts. If you swap out every board of a ship, is it still the original ship? Now apply that to people. Your body constantly replaces cells, so are you even the same person from 5 years ago? Or did you get fully replaced? No one knows the answers to these questions. Determinism argues that free will is just an illusion. Every choice you make was already determined by past events, meaning your decision to eat pizza last night wasn't really a decision. It was fate. So next time you make a bad choice, just blame determinism. It wasn't me, it was the universe forcing me to binge watch an entire TV series. Want to dive deeper into mind-bending ideas like this? Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and check out our latest videos. Because, let's be honest, it was already determined that you would. Some crystals take millions of years to form, but humans can grow fake ones in days. Nature spends millennia crafting perfect quartz, yet scientists can whip up synthetic gems in a lab faster than you can binge watch a TV series. Mother Earth must be furious that we're speedrunning her geological masterpiece. Some European countries forgot to decolonize certain places. France still technically owns islands in the Caribbean, Indian Ocean, and the Pacific, while Britain controls 14 overseas territories. So, colonialism never really ended. It just rebranded itself into a less obvious but equally awkward family reunion that never ends. The Belgians left the Congo so suddenly that they didn't bother training locals to run the government. In 1960, the entire country had just 16 university graduates. It's like firing all the teachers at a school and expecting the students to run the place, except with more coups and chaos. A city in Australia has a giant banana for no reason. The big banana in Coffs Harbour is a huge fiberglass fruit that serves as a tourist attraction because why not? It's a reminder that when people have too much time, they start throwing oversized food sculptures into the landscape for entertainment. There's a car on top of a tree in Seattle, and nobody knows how it got there. A Volkswagen Beetle has been stuck in a tree in Seattle for decades, and no one can explain why or how it ended up there. Either an alien had a parking accident, or someone took tree hugging way too literally. The largest crystal cave in the world looks like Superman's Fortress of Solitude. Mexico's Nica mine holds massive selenite crystals over 30 feet long. The downside, it's so hot in there, around 136 degrees Fahrenheit, that you can only stay for 10 minutes before feeling like a melting candle. Beautiful, but also a death trap. Jupiter is basically a failed star. It's mostly made of hydrogen and helium, just like the sun, but it didn't gain enough mass to ignite nuclear fusion. So instead of shining bright, it settled for being the solar system's biggest gas giant, bullying smaller planets with its massive gravity and hoarding over 90 moons like a celestial hoarder. Saturn's rings are disappearing. Thanks to gravity and solar radiation, they're slowly raining down onto the planet in what scientists call ring rain. In another 100 million years, they might be gone completely. Enjoy Saturn's cosmic bling while you can. It's the universe's most extravagant, limited edition accessory. The Amazonian giant centipede hunts birds, frogs, and even bats by climbing cave ceilings and snatching them mid-flight. That's right, this multi-legged nightmare doesn't just crawl, it ambushes flying creatures like a horror villain with too many legs. The fact that it exists proves nature loves chaos and has no concept of mercy. The first recorded music notes are over 3,400 years old. The oldest known song, written on a clay tablet, was found in Ugarit, modern Syria, and is basically a hymn about a goddess. If ancient musicians had SoundCloud, they'd be out here flexing that their track is older than civilization itself. A town in Canada has a giant nickel just sitting there. In Sudbury, Ontario, there's a 30-foot-tall replica of a 5-cent coin, randomly placed on a hill. It doesn't serve any real purpose, it's just there, existing, confusing tourists and making every other loose change collector feel like an underachiever. There's a house in Japan with a random boulder inside. Instead of removing a giant rock while building a home, an architect decided to just build around it. Now, the homeowners have a massive boulder chilling in their living room, like a very inconvenient coffee table that nature refused to move. The fungus Ophiocordyceps unilateralis infects ants and mind controls them, forcing them to climb to the perfect height before it explodes from their heads to release spores. Imagine waking up one day, realizing you're possessed, and the next thing you know, boom! Your brain is a mushroom farm. Nature's horror department really outdid itself with this one. In Mexico, sweeping a single woman's feet with a broom means she'll never get married. So if your abuela accidentally brushes your foot while cleaning, congratulations. You're now permanently single. Better invest in some steel-toe boots or learn to levitate whenever someone's tidying up. In Nigeria, hitting your foot against a stone is believed to be a sign of incoming misfortune. Some say it means a serious argument is on the way, while others think it signals a financial disaster. So, if you stub your toe on the way to work, just turn around and go back to bed. It's over for you. The decapitated head of a snake can still bite you. Even after being chopped off, a snake's head can remain active for hours and reflexively strike if touched. Imagine thinking you've won against a snake, only for its ghostly head to get in one last spiteful bite. That's pure villain energy. Angel's Landing in Utah is named ironically because no angel would land here willingly. It's a narrow, winding trail with chains bolted into the rock for support, but let's be honest, those chains are just there for psychological comfort. One wrong move and you'll be doing an impromptu skydiving session without a parachute. Research shows women often underestimate their intelligence, while men overestimate theirs. This explains why Chad confidently applies for CEO jobs with zero experience, while Sarah, who has 2 degrees and built a small empire, still wonders if she's qualified to send an email. The real unanswered question, who's actually the smarter one? A bizarre 18th century theory claimed women's brains would overheat if they studied too much, making them infertile. Because obviously, learning math was just too much for delicate lady brains. Meanwhile, men were out here wearing wigs, powdering their faces, and passing out in corsets, but sure, women were the fragile ones. Early printers were basically possessed typewriters on steroids. The first mechanical printers were so loud they sounded like a construction site in a hurricane. Offices using these machines had to deal with the constant noise as if they were working inside a malfunctioning robot factory. It's a miracle anyone got any work done without developing permanent hearing damage. Some snakes play dead so convincingly that they even let their tongues hang out and release a disgusting smell to sell the act. The hognose snake deserves an Oscar for its commitment. It doesn't just fake its death, it fakes it so well that even predators probably think, yeah, I'll pass on this one. The floss dance went from an obscure internet meme to a global sensation, proving that society will accept any movement as long as it looks ridiculous and is easy to copy. Schools even had to ban it because kids were flossing instead of paying attention in class, because obviously education can't compete with awkward arm swings. Japan has a dance called para, where everyone performs the same synchronized hand and arm movements while their feet barely move. It's like aerobics, but only for the upper body. If you ever want to feel like a malfunctioning robot in a crowded nightclub, this is the dance for you. There's an egg that can bounce like a rubber ball. The eggs of some amphibians, like the frog species Leptodactylus phallax, are so jelly-like that they can survive being dropped without breaking. Imagine cracking one open for breakfast and watching it bounce right off your pan like a rebellious pancake. Octopus mothers basically turn into zombies while protecting their eggs. Some species, like the deep-sea octopus Granellodon boreopacifica, guard their eggs for over 4 years without eating. By the time the eggs hatch, the mother looks like a deflated balloon and usually dies. Talk about extreme parenting. She literally starves herself for her kids. A house in Poland is upside down, just because no one set rules to build houses upright. In the village of Scheinbark, there's a house that was built completely upside down, including the furniture inside. Walking through it is so disorienting that visitors actually get dizzy. It's like someone designed a building purely to mess with gravity and human balance. Some Arabian perfumes could survive the apocalypse. Unlike Western alcohol-based scents that fade in hours, traditional Attar's oil-based perfumes can last for years. Some rare blends get stronger over time, meaning your perfume collection might outlive you and still smell amazing long after you're gone. Perfume merchants were the original chemists. Medieval Arab perfumers weren't just mixing scents. They were experimenting with alchemy, distillation, and even early chemistry. If things had gone differently, your favorite OUD blend might have accidentally turned into an explosive. Smelling good was literally a science experiment. In the 19th century, some scientists believed that because men had larger skulls, they were obviously more intelligent. By that logic, whales should be running the world right now. Meanwhile, women were out here solving complex problems, while also remembering where everyone left their socks. An intelligence feat that still baffles modern science. Some of the most valuable things on Earth are completely useless. Take antimatter, for example. It costs around 62 trillion per gram, making it the most expensive substance known to man. But what can you do with it? Mostly explode. Congratulations, you just bought the world's most overpriced doomsday button. Want more mind-blowing facts like this? Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let us know in the comments what absurdly expensive thing you'd buy if money weren't an issue. There's a rare fungus called matsutake mushroom that can sell for over $1,000 per pound, and it grows best in soil that's been disturbed by natural disasters. So basically, nature's way of saying, hey, sorry about the earthquake, here's a really expensive mushroom you probably won't enjoy eating anyway. The note B-flat is everywhere, even where it shouldn't be. Scientists found that black holes emit a sound 57 octaves below middle C, which is basically an extremely deep B-flat. So technically, the universe itself is humming a creepy, never-ending bass line. Somewhere out there, a cosmic DJ is dropping the slowest beat in history. Early musicians feared certain notes were cursed. In medieval times, the tritone, an interval between notes, was called the devil's interval because it sounded unsettling. Church leaders even banned it from sacred music. Imagine being so scared of a sound that you declare it illegal. Meanwhile, modern horror movie composers can't get enough of it. There's an ultra-rare blue diamond called the Hope Diamond, worth around $350 million, but it supposedly carries a curse that ruins the lives of its owners. So basically, you can be insanely rich, but at the cost of endless misfortune, because nothing screams extra valuable like a jewel that might ruin your life. People pay to be burrito wrapped in blankets. Wrap therapy involves rolling people up in heavy blankets like human burritos to reduce anxiety. It's supposed to mimic the feeling of being swaddled as a baby, but let's be real. Someone just wanted an excuse to be professionally tucked in like a giant emotional burrito. Some therapists make patients talk to empty chairs. Empty chair therapy makes people sit across from an invisible person, usually a lost loved one or their younger self, and have a conversation. It's all fun and therapeutic until you realize you're passionately arguing with a chair and hoping it forgives you. Absurdism says life has no meaning, but that's okay. It argues that the universe is chaotic and indifferent, and trying to find meaning in it is pointless. The solution? Laugh at the absurdity of existence and just keep going. Basically, existential crisis is unavoidable, but at least you can turn it into a comedy special. Ancient people thought crystals had actual magical powers. Greeks believed amethyst could prevent drunkenness, so they carved wine goblets from it. Turns out, drinking from a crystal cup doesn't stop you from getting drunk. It just makes your expensive cup the fanciest casualty of a night gone wrong. The stethoscope was invented because a doctor was too embarrassed to put his ear on a woman's chest. In 1816, a French doctor found it improper to listen to heartbeats the usual way, so he rolled up a piece of paper into a tube. And just like that, medical history changed forever. Social awkwardness saves lives. The number 666 has been scaring people for centuries. But did you know there's actual math horror behind it? If you add up all the numbers on a roulette wheel, you get 666. That means casinos are technically Satan's playground, which honestly makes sense given how quickly they drain your soul and wallet. Mercury experiences wild temperature swings, from a blistering 800 degrees Fahrenheit during the day to a bone-chilling minus 290 degrees Fahrenheit at night. The planet is basically an oven by day and a deep freezer by night, making it the worst Airbnb option in the solar system. No atmosphere, no middle ground, just extremes. The screwdriver was originally designed to help build armor. Medieval knights needed a way to fasten their plate armor, so they used early screwdrivers to tighten screws on their fancy metal suits. Fast forward a few centuries, and now we just use them to assemble cheap furniture while questioning our life choices. The cheese was probably invented by accident inside a stomach. The first cheese likely formed when ancient people stored milk in animal stomachs, and the natural enzymes turned it into curds. Imagine being the first person to taste that experiment. Hey, this used to be milk from a goat's stomach, smells weird. Let's eat it. Humanity has always been bold with food choices. Jelly beans get their shine from bug secretions. That glossy coating on your favorite jelly beans? It's shellac, a substance made from the excretions of the lac beetle. Yes, you're basically eating polished bug spit. And yet, we still happily pop them by the handful, like they aren't tiny, sugar-coated insect projects. Smart fridges can shame you for your diet choices. Some modern refrigerators have cameras inside that track what you eat. Imagine reaching for ice cream at midnight, only for your fridge to suggest a salad instead. One day, AI-powered fridges might start roasting people. Really? Another slice of cake? Didn't we talk about this? There's a therapy where you just lie down and do nothing. Non-sleep deep rest is a real thing where therapists guide people into a half-sleep state to reduce stress. It's basically a socially acceptable way to nap during a session while pretending to be emotionally productive. The neo-modern era gave us machines to make life easier, but postmodernism gave us machines that make life meaningless, like AI bots that write poetry, robots that play chess better than humans, and social media algorithms that control your mood. Congratulations! You live in a world where even your phone knows you better than you do. There's a bottle of Acqua di Cristallo Tributo a Modigliani, the world's most expensive bottled water, priced at $60,000 per bottle. It's literally just water in a fancy bottle. Imagine paying enough to buy a car, just to stay hydrated, because clearly regular water is for peasants. Vikings believed that warriors who died bravely in battle were taken to Valhalla, while those who died of old age or sickness had to spend eternity in a boring underworld. So, if you were a Viking and caught a cold, you might have considered picking a fight just to go out in style. Consumerism has convinced people that they need a separate gadget for everything. There's now a smart fork that vibrates if you eat too fast, because apparently, chewing at a normal speed is a lost art. Soon, we'll have a toaster that judges us for our bread choices and a fridge that shames us for midnight snacks. Thanks to consumerism, companies have mastered the art of making things worse on purpose. Ever notice how your phone battery mysteriously dies faster after an update? That's planned obsolescence, where products are designed to fail just in time for you to buy a new one. It's capitalism's way of saying, nice try, but you're never escaping this cycle. The Aztecs had a ritual where they flayed a person's skin and wore it like a coat to honor Totec, their god of renewal. Nothing says new beginnings like walking around in someone else's epidermis like a fashion-forward serial killer. The idea that humans only use 10% of their brains is a complete myth. If that were true, brain scans would look like a barely functioning light bulb. Neuroscience shows we use all of our brain. Just not all at once, because even the brain likes to take coffee breaks. The world's largest egg came from an extinct bird that made ostriches look tiny. The elephant bird of Madagascar laid eggs that were over a foot long and could hold the same volume as 150 chicken eggs. If these birds still existed, breakfast omelets would be a week-long commitment. Some eggs are blue thanks to a virus. Certain chickens lay blue eggs because of a harmless ancient virus that messed with their DNA. So, the next time you see a fancy blue egg, just remember it's basically the result of a long-forgotten chicken flu that never went away. In Italy, if you spill olive oil, congratulations, you just cursed yourself with bad luck. Since olive oil was once considered liquid gold, wasting it means you've angered the prosperity gods. Imagine making a salad and suddenly realizing you've doomed your entire week. You better start mopping and praying. The chicken dance was originally a Swiss folk song, but it somehow evolved into an international wedding tradition where adults willingly flap their arms like confused birds. It's the only time in life where making a fool of yourself in public is not just accepted, it's expected. The moonwalk wasn't actually invented by Michael Jackson. Variations of the movie existed in the 1930s. But let's be real, nobody made it look as cool. Before MJ, it was just a neat foot shuffle. After MJ, it became the gold standard for pretending to glide through space at family gatherings. In Japan, sticking chopsticks upright in a bowl of rice is a big no-no. It looks exactly like the incense sticks used at funerals, making it a symbol of death. So if you're casually eating sushi and park your chopsticks like that, don't be surprised if the entire restaurant gasps in horror. The steam engine was so revolutionary that some people thought it was powered by actual magic. Early skeptics believed trains moving at high speeds would crush people's lungs or cause mass insanity. Turns out the only real danger was people refusing to accept that the future had arrived at 30 miles per hour. Want to hear more absurd facts about history's greatest inventions? Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single wild tale. Drop a comment if you would have been one of those skeptics freaking out over demon-powered trains. The most expensive perfume ingredients smell horrifying at first. Some luxury Arabic scents contain musk from deer glands, which smells like sweaty socks before processing. Yet, after months of aging, it turns into one of the most prized fragrance notes. So, next time you enjoy a fancy perfume, remember, it probably started as something revolting. Ancient Greek music notes were weird mathematical equations. Instead of simple symbols, Greek musicians used an entire system of letters and fractions to write music. If you wanted to play a song, you basically needed to be a mathematician first. No wonder Socrates stuck to philosophy. Tuning a lyre probably felt like solving a calculus problem. There's a lake in Africa that turns animals into statues. Lake Natron in Tanzania has such a high concentration of salt and minerals that any animal unlucky enough to fall in gets preserved like a creepy natural mummy. The result? Perfectly calcified birds and bats that look like they were turned to stone mid-flight. Nature is out here making real-life horror movie props. Some former colonies still have European royalty on their money, even though they kicked those monarchs out decades ago. Queen Elizabeth II's face was still on Canadian and Australian cash until very recently, because nothing says independence like keeping your old ruler's portrait in your wallet forever. Some people still believe that swallowed chewing gum stays in your stomach for 7 years. If that were true, every gum lover would be carrying a personal collection of sticky fossils in their gut. In reality, your body kicks it out like an unwanted guest, just not as quickly as other food. The textile industry exploded during the industrial era, but working conditions were a nightmare. Cotton mills were so filled with fiber dust that workers developed mill fever, a fancy way of saying their lungs were turning into fabric filters. Congratulations, you weren't just making clothes, you were breathing them too. Iraq's army just disappeared in thin air. After the US invaded in 2003, Saddam Hussein's massive army didn't really fight back. It mostly dissolved into thin air. Thousands of soldiers just went home, and some later joined insurgent groups. Imagine showing up for a war and realizing your opponent just left the battlefield like a bad breakup. In Turkey, casually whistling at night is basically asking for trouble. Many believe it attracts evil spirits, and some even think it can summon the devil himself. So if you're wandering the streets of Istanbul at night whistling your favorite tune, don't be surprised if the shadows start whispering back. In Rwanda, women are warned against eating goat meat because it's believed to cause them to grow beards. Apparently, taking a bite of goat will have you waking up looking like a wizard. No scientific proof backs this up, but hey, if it were true, barbershops would be making a fortune off curious risk-takers. The parasitoid wasp doesn't just kill its prey, it turns it into a zombie first. These wasps lay their eggs inside caterpillars, and when the larvae hatch, they hijack the caterpillar's brain, forcing it to guard them until they're ready to burst out like a horror movie chestburster. Nature didn't need to be this dramatic, but here we are. Solipsism is basically the ultimate narcissist philosophy. It argues that you can't prove anything exists outside your own mind. That means your friends, family, and even your annoying neighbor might just be figments of your imagination. So, if you ever feel lonely, just remember, you might be the only real person in the universe anyway. Hedonism takes treat yourself to the extreme. It's the belief that pleasure is the ultimate goal in life. If hedonists had a motto, it would probably be YOLO. Some ancient hedonists even suggested eating and partying nonstop because suffering is pointless. Imagine telling your boss you skipped work because philosophy told you to chase happiness. Some former colonies still pay compensation to their old colonizers. Haiti, for example, had to pay France billions of dollars for the privilege of not being enslaved anymore. That's like quitting your job and still being forced to pay your ex-boss for the money he's no longer stealing from you. Many countries got their independence, but their borders were drawn by clueless colonizers who didn't care about local cultures. That's why why some nations look like they were mapped out by a blindfolded toddler with a crayon, leading to conflicts where people fight over land that was divided by people who never lived there. There's a myth that goldfish have 3-second memories. If that were true, they'd be rediscovering their tiny tank like an amnesiac in a time loop. In reality, goldfish can remember things for months and even recognize their owners. So next time you forget your keys, remember that a goldfish just outperformed you. Many people think cracking your knuckles will give you arthritis. If that were true, half the population would be walking around with claw hands. In reality, the sound comes from gas bubbles popping in your joints. So unless you plan on cracking them 24/7 like a human popcorn machine, you're probably fine. People hold funerals for their old phones. Some folks are so emotionally attached to their smartphones that they perform farewell rituals before upgrading. Candlelight vigils, eulogies, and even tiny phone coffins exist. In the neo-modern world, your phone isn't just a device, it's apparently a lifelong companion worthy of a dramatic send-off. In China, the number 4 is considered so unlucky that many buildings just skip the 4th floor entirely. It sounds like the word for death, so elevators often jump from the 3rd to the 5th floor, as if death itself is waiting on the 4th. Imagine explaining to a confused tourist why their hotel room number goes from 303 to 305. In Western countries, breaking a mirror is said to bring 7 years of bad luck. But in Serbia, if a baby sees its own reflection before its first birthday, it could bring disaster. Imagine trying to explain to a baby why they're not allowed to look at themselves. Good luck enforcing that rule. Screaming into the void is now an actual therapy. Some therapists recommend primal scream therapy, where people just let out blood-curdling screams to release stress. So if you hear random yelling in the woods, don't panic. It's probably just someone dealing with their midlife crisis in a socially acceptable way. People get therapy from llamas. Llama therapy exists, and these fluffy creatures are used to help with anxiety and depression. There's something oddly calming about staring into the eyes of a judgmental llama while reconsidering all your life choices. If therapy ever evolves further, we might just start confessing our problems to houseplants. In the early 1900s, psychologists tried proving men were smarter by making women take IQ tests after doing housework. Shockingly, exhausted women didn't score as high. If we flip this test today, men would have to assemble IKEA furniture first. Let's see how that affects their superior intelligence. Some people believe that waking sleepwalkers will send them into shock, or even kill them. If that were true, sleepwalkers would be an endangered species. In reality, it's totally fine to wake them up, though they might be confused and angry, kind of like anyone woken up from a deep nap. The start of the industrial era turned children into tiny factory workers. In the 1800s, kids as young as 5 were squeezing into dangerous machines to fix broken parts because their small hands could reach inside. Workplace safety? Never heard of it. If you could walk and had fingers, congratulations, you had a job. The first factories were so polluted that workers were basically marinated in soot. Cities like Manchester, England, were coated in a layer of industrial grime so thick that people joked about needing to wash their lungs. If you lived near a factory, you weren't just breathing air, you were inhaling your own personal cloud of coal dust. Before alarm clocks were common, factories hired knocker-uppers, people who banged on workers' windows with long sticks to wake them up for their shift. If you ignored them, they just kept knocking. Imagine getting harassed awake every morning by a stranger with a giant pole. Snooze buttons were for weaklings. Some people with brain injuries develop foreign accent syndrome, where they suddenly speak with an accent they've never learned. Imagine waking up from a head injury sounding like a perfect French aristocrat when you've never even left Ohio. Your brain just decided, congratulations, you're European now. A head injury can make you a math genius overnight. It's called acquired savant syndrome, where people suddenly gain extraordinary skills in music, art, or math after a brain injury. One guy hit his head in a pool and woke up seeing the world in complex mathematical patterns. Most people just get a headache. This guy got the Matrix. The number 0 wasn't always accepted. Some ancient civilizations refused to acknowledge its existence. Imagine trying to explain 0 to someone who believes numbers must have a tangible value. So this is a number that means nothing. Then why does it exist? Exactly. And that's how philosophers probably lost their minds arguing about 0. Snakes don't have eyelids, meaning they literally sleep with their eyes open. It's not just creepy, it's the ultimate power move. Imagine being so unbothered that you just sit there, unblinking, staring into the abyss while getting some rest. Snakes might be the only animals that can nap and intimidate at the same time. Want more bizarre animal facts? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and prepare to question everything you thought you knew about nature. Some snakes have 2 heads, and no, this isn't a myth. Occasionally, a genetic mutation causes snakes to develop 2 functioning heads, each with its own brain. The problem? The heads don't always get along and sometimes try to eat the same prey, or worse, each other. It's like having a built-in sibling rivalry with no way to escape. In South Korea, sleeping with a fan on in a closed room is believed to cause fan death. Some believe the fan sucks out oxygen or somehow makes you suffocate in your sleep. So, while the rest of the world enjoys a cool breeze at night, some Koreans are out here treating electric fans like serial killers. Neptune has the fastest winds in the solar system, reaching over 12,000 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound on Earth. If you ever stood on Neptune, which, by the way, would be impossible, you'd get deleted into oblivion by supersonic winds before you could even complain about the weather. The number 7 is considered lucky, but mathematically, it's actually weird. It's the only single-digit number that doesn't fit into normal multiplication patterns. Ask a kid to recite the 7 times table and watch them suffer. It's like 7 just decided to be mysterious for the sake of keeping humans intrigued. In the early 20th century, the one-drop rule classified anyone with even a trace of black ancestry as black, reinforcing rigid racial divisions. This legal and social construct ignored the reality of biracial identity, essentially forcing people into a single category regardless of their cultural or personal background. The Guinness World Record for the most finger snaps in 1 minute is over 400. That's not a casual talent, that's a one-man drumline. If this person ever got into an argument, they could sass someone into another dimension with sheer snap power. Sharks have eggs that look like alien screw-shaped capsules. Some species, like the cat shark, lay eggs in spiral cases that latch onto rocks so they don't float away. If you ever find one washed up on the shore, congratulations, you've discovered nature's weirdest-looking bottle opener. Some snakes can glide through the air like nightmare noodles. The paradise tree snake launches itself off branches, flattening its body to create lift. Basically, evolution looked at snakes and thought, you know what's missing? Flight. Because nothing improves life like airborne reptiles silently judging you from above. In Russia, if you shake hands or pass something through a doorway, you're basically asking for misfortune. It's believed that doorways are mystical boundaries and any exchange over them invites bad luck. So, if you ever visit a Russian home, step inside before you hand over that loaf of bread, unless you want to anger the universe. Panpsychism suggests that everything, yes, everything, has a form of consciousness. That includes rocks, chairs, and your toaster. So next time you stub your toe on a table, remember, according to panpsychism, that table might have been holding a grudge. Better apologize before your furniture starts plotting revenge. Some brain injuries can delete your ability to recognize faces, even your own. People with prosopagnosia and face blindness have to rely on voices, hairstyles, or even clothing to tell people apart. Imagine not recognizing your best friend, as they always wear the same hoodie. One laundry day, and you're clueless. Electric eels weaponize water-like living tasers. These slippery assassins can zap their enemies with up to 600 volts, enough to knock out a horse. Even weirder? They sometimes leap out of the water to directly electrocute threats. If water ever starts fighting back, electric eels will be the reason. Japan once trained bomb-carrying balloons to attack the US. During World War II, Japan sent thousands of paper balloons carrying explosives across the Pacific. Most failed, but one actually killed 6 people in Oregon. It's history's strangest long-distance attack, proving that even warfare sometimes has an arts and crafts phase. The mantis shrimp can punch so fast it boils water. This tiny marine warrior throws punches at the speed of a bullet, creating shockwaves that briefly turn water into plasma. If mantis shrimp were human-sized, they'd be one-punch superheroes. Instead, they just go around smashing crab shells like living wrecking balls. Ottomans had a navy full of chained-together ships. During the siege of Constantinople in 1453, the Ottomans literally dragged their warships across land to bypass the massive defensive chain blocking the harbor. Because when the sea says no, you just make a new sea. Tunnels of doom were their specialty. Ottoman armies were known for digging tunnels under enemy walls and stuffing them with explosives. This medieval version of surprise demolition meant that even if you built the strongest walls, they might just vanish under your feet. Corn is basically a mutant. Modern corn looks nothing like its wild ancestor, teosinte, which was a tiny, hard-kerneled plant. Thanks to centuries of selective breeding, corn has evolved into the oversized, sugar-packed crop we know today. If aliens ever find the original version, they'd probably think we were playing God with plants. Bananas are doomed time travelers. Every banana you eat is genetically identical to the next one because they're all clones. This makes them vulnerable to diseases that can wipe them out completely, like the Gros Michel variety that disappeared in the 1950s. The banana apocalypse isn't a joke. It's just on a slow timer. Rice has been around longer than most civilizations. Humans have been growing rice for over 10,000 years, making it one of the oldest cultivated crops. If you ever eat a bowl of rice, just remember, it's been feeding humanity since before people figured out what a wheel was. Potatoes once caused mass hysteria. In 18th century France, people believed potatoes were poisonous and responsible for spreading leprosy. It took a man literally eating potatoes in front of crowds to prove they were edible. The real twist? The French later turned them into fries, and now people fight over who invented them. Wheat is secretly a conqueror. Wheat isn't just food, it's a colonizer. Wherever humans went, they brought wheat, wiping out native crops and taking over farmland. This one grain reshaped entire civilizations. If plants had an empire, wheat would be the emperor, forcing everyone to kneel before its golden stalks. The elite warriors of the Ottoman army were kidnapped children. The Janissaries, the Ottomans' deadliest soldiers, were originally Christian boys taken as tribute, converted to Islam, and trained from childhood. Raised with zero attachments to anything but the empire, they became an unstoppable, highly disciplined force, essentially medieval stormtroopers with better aim. Some people are obsessed with hoarding bars of soap, not using them, just stockpiling them. There are collectors who own thousands of bars, organized by brand, scent, and color. Their houses must smell like a combination of heaven and a public restroom. The Silk Road was the world's first black market for exotic pets. Traders didn't just move silk and spices. They also sold live animals like peacocks, cheetahs, and even rhinos. Imagine being a merchant just trying to buy some fabric, and the guy next to you is haggling over a live leopard. Marco Polo's travel stories from the Silk Road were so exaggerated that some Europeans thought China was full of sorcerers and giant birds that could lift elephants. People read his book and genuinely believed the East was basically a fantasy RPG, complete with magical potions and dragon-sized birds straight out of a fever dream. The Silk Road was also an ancient meme highway. Just like today's internet, ideas, jokes, and even fashion trends spread rapidly along the trade routes. If you wore certain clothes in Persia, chances were that Mongolian nobles were already rocking the same trend weeks later. Silk Road fashion was the original TikTok challenge. There's a guy who has spent 40 years collecting belly button lint. He stores it in jars, color coordinates it, and even weighs it. Somewhere in the world, this man wakes up every morning and checks his lint collection with pride. Humanity, we have officially peaked. A teen sold his kidney for an iPhone to play games. In 2011, a Chinese teenager illegally sold one of his kidneys just to afford an iPhone and an iPad for gaming. Fast forward a decade, and he's now suffering from kidney failure. Meanwhile, Apple keeps making new devices every year. Bad trade. Someone spent over $1 million on a mobile game. A man in California reportedly spent over $1 million on Game of War, a mobile game that barely anyone remembers. That's right, he could have bought a mansion, but instead he invested in virtual catapults. Hopefully his digital empire was worth it. A gamer didn't notice a dead body next to him. In 2012, Taiwanese gamer died in an internet cafe after playing for hours non-stop. The wildest part? Other gamers around him kept playing, completely unaware that he had passed away. This is peak video game obsession, when real-life NPCs stop registering real-life events. Want more mind-blowing stories like this? Hit that subscribe button and dive into the weirdest facts on our channel. Women's pockets are practically decorative. Ever wondered why women's clothing has tiny, useless pockets? That's because in the 1800s, designers thought giving women real pockets would make them too independent. Fast forward to today, and women are still carrying entire purses just to hold what men casually toss into their jeans. Men interrupt women so much. There's a word for it. Manterrupting is a real thing, and studies show that men interrupt women far more often than they interrupt other men. One experiment found that when a woman spoke in a meeting, she was cut off within 17 seconds. At this point, she'd have better luck getting through a sentence in Morse code. Women's products are more expensive for no reason. The pink tax is the ridiculous practice of charging more for products marketed to women, like razors, deodorant, and even pens. Yes, pens. Apparently, making something pink requires a financial sacrifice worthy of a medieval tribute. Ottomans had secret police before it was cool. The Ottomans used an extensive network of spies to root out traitors, keep an eye on their enemies, and ensure loyalty. If you ever thought about rebellion, chances were someone had already snitched before you finished your evil monologue. There's a man in Japan who has spent decades collecting women's mannequins. He dresses them up, talks to them, and even takes them out for strolls. Imagine walking down the street and seeing a guy on a casual date with a plastic lady. Nothing says romance like a companion who literally can't argue back. Ottomans weaponized water and also took it away. Instead of just attacking, the Ottomans were experts in water warfare. If they weren't poisoning enemy wells, they were redirecting rivers to flood towns or cutting off water supplies entirely. Hydration was optional. Winning was not. Car safety tests are based on male crash dummies. Most crash test dummies are modeled after the average male body, meaning cars are literally designed to keep men safer than women in accidents. Women are 47% more likely to be seriously injured in a car crash because apparently even safety regulations think one size fits all means one size fits men. In Japan, slurping is a compliment. In many cultures, loudly slurping your food is a one-way ticket to public embarrassment. But in Japan, it's actually polite. Slurping noodles enthusiastically shows appreciation to the chef. So, if you ever visit, go ahead. Make your spaghetti sound like a vacuum cleaner. In Scotland, grooms get covered in filth before marriage. If you think wedding stress is bad, try being a Scottish groom. In some parts of Scotland, grooms are captured by friends, tied up and covered in everything from rotten eggs to mud. Apparently, if you can survive humiliation, you can survive marriage. India has a festival where people throw cow dung. While other cultures celebrate with fireworks or parades, some Indian villages in Karnataka celebrate Gore Haba by hurling cow dung at each other. It's basically a manure-based snowball fight, except instead of getting cold, you just smell bad for days. Finland has a hobby called wife carrying. In Finland, men compete by carrying their wives through an obstacle course. If they win, the prize is their wife's weight in beer. Nothing says romance like treating your spouse like a sack of potatoes in exchange for free alcohol. Mongolians have a rock, paper, scissors wrestling sport. Traditional Mongolian wrestling matches begin with a ritual dance, but to decide who goes first, they play a game similar to rock, paper, scissors using different hand gestures. Just imagine if the World Cup was decided by a dramatic round of best 2 out of 3. The scorched earth strategy is basically rage-quitting war. Throughout history, armies have burned their own crops, homes, and even entire cities just to make sure their enemies inherited nothing but ashes. It's the ultimate, if I can't have it, nobody can move, proving that pettiness has been a military tactic for centuries. A man played World of Warcraft until his legs stopped working. One gamer in China was so obsessed with World of Warcraft that he spent days in an internet cafe without moving. When he finally tried to stand up, his legs had literally stopped functioning. Turns out, even your body has a rage quit button. A guy divorced his wife because she cheated on him. In a game, a Japanese man divorced his wife after discovering her Sims character was in a virtual affair. Imagine explaining to a judge that your marriage ended because of pixelated infidelity. Your Honor, she betrayed me. In a house she didn't even build herself. Office air can lower your brain power. White-collar workers might be breathing in their own downfall. Studies show that poorly ventilated offices with high carbon dioxide levels can reduce cognitive function. So, if your boss ever questions a bad decision, blame the air. It wasn't me, it was the oxygen shortage. The cubicle was invented to make people miserable. The original cubicle was actually designed to be spacious and promote productivity, but companies shrank the design to cram in more workers, turning them into tiny, soul-crushing boxes. Basically, cubicles went from creative workspace to modern hamster cages in record time. Meetings are scientifically proven to be pointless. Research suggests that most meetings could be emails, and yet, white-collar workers spend hours trapped in them. Some companies even have meetings about having too many meetings. It's the corporate version of running on a treadmill. Lots of motion, no progress. A town in Kentucky once experienced a meat shower in 1876. Mysterious chunks of raw meat rained from the sky for several minutes. Scientists later guessed it was probably vultures vomiting midair, but let's be honest, no theory is truly satisfying when the meat falls from the sky unannounced. The Fresno nightcrawlers are strange, ghostly creatures caught on security cameras in California. They look like walking pairs of pants with no torso. Just 2 legs casually strutting around like they own the place. Some believe they're cryptids, others think they're aliens, but one thing's for sure, they've got the best leg game in the universe. In 2011, a man in Norway reported seeing a floating city in the sky. The eerie mirage had towers, buildings, and streets, all hovering above the clouds. Scientists say it was a rare atmospheric illusion, but it's way more fun to believe Norway has a parallel dimension that occasionally glitches into view. Ryanair, the budget airline known for its extreme cost cutting, once considered removing armrests, charging for bathrooms, and even offering standing room tickets. If they had their way, you'd be duct taped to the wall for a $5 discount. Southwest Airlines once pranked customers by announcing Love Class seating, where couples could share extra wide seats with a champagne service. Some passengers were so excited they didn't realize it was April Fool's Day. Imagine showing up ready for romance, only to be told you're back in an economy with a crying baby. Early maps were pure artistic guesses. Before satellites, cartographers basically made up parts of the world. If they didn't know what was beyond a certain point, they'd just throw in a sea monster or label it, "Here be dragons." Because if you don't have facts, go for terrifying fiction. The oldest known world map is wildly inaccurate. Babylonian Imago Mundi from 600 BCE is considered the oldest surviving world map. It features a tiny, flat world surrounded by water with mysterious islands labeled "Where the Sun Never Shines." It's basically ancient flat earther propaganda on a clay tablet. When the Ottoman Empire blocked the Silk Road, some merchants refused to accept reality and tried sneaky alternatives, like using smugglers, disguising caravans, or straight up bribing border guards. Imagine getting caught and having to explain to a furious sultan that your 50 camels weren't loaded with silk, but were just really fancy tent fabric. The closure of the Silk Road made Europe's economy super awkward. Cities built around trade hubs collapsed, while others near the new sea routes boomed. This was like watching an ancient version of a small business losing everything because a massive online retailer just took over. Sorry, inland caravan towns? The Silk Age is over. T-shirts were originally considered underwear, yes, the thing you proudly wear with flashy logos. In the early 1900s, the U.S. Navy gave sailors T-shirts to wear under their uniforms, but soon people realized they were too comfy to keep covered. Fashion rebellion starts with laziness. Want more weird fashion history? Hit that subscribe button and check out our latest video. You won't look at your wardrobe the same way again. The world's most expensive t-shirt was sold for a whopping $40,000. It was made of organic cotton, featured a rare design, and had diamonds woven into it. Apparently, nothing says casual wear like turning yourself into a walking jewelry display. The Guinness World Record for the most t-shirts worn at once is 260, achieved by a guy who spent hours layering them on. At that point, it's less about fashion and more about turning yourself into a fabric onion. Soviet maps lied to their own people. During the Cold War, the USSR deliberately made their maps inaccurate to confuse enemies and their citizens. Important cities were misplaced, roads didn't lead where they should, and some towns were completely erased. Basically, getting lost was a government-mandated experience. Ties serve no practical purpose. The necktie is the ultimate symbol of white-collar life, yet it does absolutely nothing except slowly choke the wearer. Some historians believe ties became popular just because they looked fancy, proving that business fashion is just expensive strangulation for style points. Typing speed matters more than you think. In the early days of white-collar jobs, typing tests determined who got hired. Some workers are trained like Olympic athletes to reach ridiculous speeds. If you couldn't hammer out 100 words per minute, you might as well have been illiterate in the corporate world. Light can't decide if it wants to be a wave or a particle, so it just does both. Imagine showing up to work as two people at once, one who slacks off and another who actually does the job. That's light. Forever stuck in a quantum identity crisis, baffling scientists for centuries. The famous double-slit experiment proved light's dual nature, but only when it wasn't being watched. If scientists observed it, light behaved like a particle. When unobserved, it spreads like a wave. Basically, light throws a cosmic tantrum when it knows it's being watched, kind of like a toddler refusing to perform on cue. Cotard's delusion is a rare brain disorder where people believe they are literally dead. They walk around convinced they have no organs, no blood, or that they're a walking corpse. A guy with this condition once asked to be taken to the morgue because he was so sure he didn't exist anymore. Brain injuries can turn you into an uncontrollable pun machine. Witzelsucht is a condition that makes people compulsively crack terrible jokes and puns, even at completely inappropriate times. Imagine being at a funeral and your brain decides, hey, let's drop a knock-knock joke right now. No social filter, just pure dad joke energy. Porcupines invented the medieval spike defense long before humans. These walking pincushions have over 30,000 quills, and if one gets stuck in a predator, it keeps working its way deeper like nature's cruelest splinter. Some predators just give up and walk around with quills stuck in them like regrettable life choices. Women's pain isn't taken seriously by doctors. Studies show that women are far more likely to have their pain dismissed by doctors, with many being told they're just stressed or emotional. Meanwhile, if a man stubs his toe, medical professionals practically roll out the red carpet for emergency treatment. In Japan, missing a phone bill can result in your number being recycled immediately. One day you're texting your friends, and the next, a total stranger is using your number to make business deals. Imagine explaining to your boss why you suddenly started selling used cars in Osaka overnight. Some places bill you for water based on an ancient system that assumes everyone uses the same amount. In some areas of the UK, water bills are calculated based on your home's 1970s property value, as if ghosts from the past determine your water usage. Hope they at least include spectral discounts. California was once an island on maps. For over 200 years, European maps showed California as a floating island. This wasn't just a small mistake, it was widely accepted. Even official Spanish maps treated it as fact, which probably made for some very confused explorers. Wait, why is the land still attached? The US once created a fake town for copyright reasons. In the 1930s, the General Drafting Company invented the town of Aglow, New York, to catch plagiarists. Years later, people saw it on maps and actually built a small settlement there. It started as a copyright trap and ended up in a real place. The first hands-free device was literally just a stick. In ancient times, people tied their primitive communication devices, like scrolls or slates, to their heads with string or wooden frames. Basically, the first hands-free experience looked less like modern Bluetooth and more like someone losing a battle with office supplies. The first Bluetooth headsets in the late 1990s were so large that users looked like they were wearing alien antennae. People thought they were talking to themselves in public, which wasn't considered normal yet. Early Bluetooth users had to choose between convenience and looking like they had an imaginary friend in their ear. China went from being an open marketplace to slamming the door on visitors. The Ming Dynasty decided that foreigners were more trouble than they were worth and cut off most outside contact. So, after centuries of trading ideas, China went full do not disturb mode while Europe scrambled to figure out how to get their luxury goods another way. Some people are so obsessed with eating glass that doctors had to name the condition hyalophagia. Yes, some humans willingly chomp on light bulbs like they're potato chips. The worst part? Some of them even insist it's crunchy and satisfying, as if dentists weren't already stressed enough. Some people are obsessed with turning themselves into real-life dolls. They undergo extreme surgeries, wear cartoonish outfits, and even practice doll-like movements. Imagine waking up one day and deciding, you know what? Being human is overrated. Time to live life as an anime character instead. There was a bizarre wave of creepy clown sightings in 2016, where people dressed as terrifying clowns popped up in random places just to freak others out. Some even chased pedestrians at night, proving once and for all that clowns belong in nightmares, not neighborhoods. Some amusement parks have had to remove clowns entirely their attractions because too many guests were freaking out. Imagine paying for a fun day out, only to find yourself sprinting in terror because a giant grinning nightmare on stilts walked by. And that's a wrap on some of the weirdest facts you'll ever hear. From the mysterious number 7 to sharks laying eggs that look like alien artifacts, the world is full of bizarre surprises. What fact blew your mind the most? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because you never know what strange fact is coming next.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
Imagine this. You're 25, single, and living your best life when, bam! A cinnamon storm hits you like you're the main ingredient in a Danish spice rack. Or maybe you're one of those lucky folks who gets invited to a wedding in Scotland, where they'll turn you into a walking cake before the ceremony. Because why not make public humiliation a part of your happily ever after? And let's not forget the Korowai tribe in Papua New Guinea, who are literally living above it all. Because why deal with evil spirits on the ground when you can just build a treehouse 140 feet up? Curious about how weird traditions and bizarre survival skills shaped the world? Hit subscribe and dive into this wild journey where history, culture, and a whole lot of cinnamon collide in the most hilarious ways possible.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
Free VPNs can be more dangerous than not using one at all. Many free VPNs sell user data, bombard users with ads, or even contain malware. It's like using a free parachute that might work, or might just be a sack of spaghetti. If privacy is the goal, paying for a reputable service is a better option. Argentina has a law where if a bill arrives late, you get extra days to pay it, but only if you notice the delay. So if you're too trusting, congratulations. You just paid a bill on time that wasn't even due. Their system basically rewards paranoia, which is a first for any government service. Koalas sound like they chain smoke cigars and yell at the TV. Their mating call is a deep, guttural bellow that sounds like a motorcycle struggling to start. Imagine a tiny, fluffy animal looking adorable, but suddenly growling like an ancient beast. Nature decided that cuteness and horror should coexist. Cheetahs can't roar, so they meow like house cats. That's right. The fastest land predator sounds like it's asking for treats instead of hunting prey. If cheetahs had a theme song, it would be a high-pitched mew instead of an epic jungle growl. Nature really fumbled the intimidation factor here. Brittle stars are the rebellious cousins of sea stars. Instead of using their water vascular system to move gently like their relatives, they whip their arms around like panicked spaghetti noodles to scurry across the ocean floor. It's less majestic marine creature and more five-legged horror sprinting straight out of a nightmare. Hydraulic presses are mechanical bullies capable of crushing almost anything with thousands of pounds of force. Scientists and YouTubers have used them to obliterate everything from bowling balls to smartphones, proving that nothing, except maybe a well-placed tax loophole, is truly indestructible. The word describing fear of long words is itself one of the longest to exist. Yes, someone out there thought it would be hilarious to give this phobia the longest, most ridiculous name possible. Imagine being terrified of long words and then having to tell people your problem in a ridiculously long tongue twister. That's just adding insult to injury. Unlike most animals, llamas don't just spit when angry. They calculate their spit attacks. They aim directly for the eyes or mouth, ensuring maximum disgust and humiliation. It's less of a reflex and more of a targeted biological insult. Scientists should honestly study them for future self-defense tactics. In South America, llamas have been used as therapy animals, proving that even a creature known for projectile mucus can still have a heartwarming side. Nothing says calm and healing like a big, fluffy animal staring into your soul while secretly deciding whether or not to spit at you. Llamas can carry up to 100 pounds, but if they decide you're asking too much, they'll straight up sit down and refuse to move. No amount of bribery, pushing, or begging will work. It's like trying to convince a stubborn toddler to eat their vegetables. Pure, unmovable defiance. McDonald's refused to open in Iraq, but KFC made it. While American fast food chains are usually the first signs of U.S. influence in a country, McDonald's avoided Iraq due to security risks. KFC, however, found a way, opening branches even in war-torn areas. Because apparently, when chaos is everywhere, people still crave fried chicken. Some rooftops are so dangerous that even professional stunt performers avoid them. In Hong Kong, daredevil rooftopers risk their lives climbing skyscrapers without safety gear, all for the perfect Instagram shot. One slip, and they're auditioning for a real-life gravity experiment. Spoiler alert, gravity always wins. Many biracial figures in history had to pass as one race for social acceptance. For instance, some light-skinned black Americans in the 19th and 20th centuries passed as white to escape discrimination, while others had to emphasize their black identity to be accepted by their communities. This highlights the social pressures placed on mixed-race individuals. Biracial identity can lead to unique cultural conflicts, as some people face exclusion from both sides of their heritage. Many biracial Americans report feeling not enough for either racial group, illustrating how racial identity in the U.S. is often shaped by external perceptions rather than personal experience. The most dangerous Silk Road travelers weren't bandits, but yaks. These massive, unpredictable animals carried goods over the roughest mountain passes, and if they decided they didn't like you, they could yeet you straight off a cliff. Merchants lived in fear of yaks, suddenly deciding that today was not a trading day. The Silk Road was a major plague delivery service. The Black Death spread across Europe thanks to infected fleas, hitching rides on merchant caravans. One day, you're just a Mongolian trader delivering some fine silk. The next, half of your customers are dead because your shipment came with a free bonus disease. The closing of the Silk Road didn't just stop trade, it threw spice addicts into crisis. European nobles used to drowning their food in Eastern spices suddenly had to suffer through bland meals. This led to a desperate search for new routes, which basically forced explorers like Columbus to accidentally bump into entire continents while looking for better seasoning. Pirates became the new Silk Road bandits. With land routes blocked, merchants had to rely on ships, which meant the ocean turned into a highway for thieves. Sea routes were basically the Wild West, except instead of horses and revolvers, people had cannons and scurvy. In 1973, dozens of people in Pascagoula, Mississippi, claimed they saw aliens with lobster-like claws abduct two fishermen. The supposed extraterrestrials didn't bother with communication, just grabbed them and took them for a ride. Either it was a real alien encounter, or the universe is running out of original horror movie ideas. In 2009, hundreds of people in Texas reported seeing a flying humanoid. Some described it as a witch, others as a demon. Turns out, it was just a man testing a jet-powered wingsuit. Imagine the confusion. One guy is breaking aviation records while the entire town thinks they're about to be cursed forever. In 1985, a pilot for Japan Airlines reported seeing a UFO larger than a battleship while flying over Alaska. The airline didn't want the bad press, so they reassigned him to a desk job. Apparently, discovering extraterrestrials is fine, as long as it doesn't interfere with customer service. In the 1950s, United Airlines used to hire stewardess charm schools to train flight attendants on smiling techniques, posture, and how to serve meals while looking graceful in turbulence. Because who cares if the plane is shaking like a blender as long as the flight attendants look glamorous while handing out peanuts? Alaska Airlines once flew an entire passenger plane covered in Star Wars-themed paint. It was all fun and games until one nervous flyer asked if the cockpit had a jump to hyperspace button. Sorry, sir, but if this plane hits light speed, we've got more significant problems than delays. Some countries still bill you for services you didn't use, just in case you might have used them. In parts of Germany, TV and radio fees apply even if you don't own a TV or radio. Basically, they charge you for the idea of watching TV, like a subscription to guilt. The lyrebird is the world's best impressionist. It can mimic camera shutters, chainsaws, car alarms, and even human speech. Imagine walking through the forest and hearing a perfect imitation of your ringtone. Either you've lost your phone or a bird is out there scamming people with fake calls. Some frogs scream instead of croaking. The desert rain frog, for example, makes a noise that sounds like a squeaky toy having an existential crisis. Instead of scaring predators away, it just confuses them into thinking they accidentally stepped on a tiny, screaming rubber duck. Giraffes were once thought to be silent, but they actually hum to each other at night. Scientists believe this is their version of bedtime stories or gossip sessions. Picture a group of giraffes humming in the dark like a weirdly tall barbershop quartet. Sweet dreams, but make it awkward. In Switzerland, it's illegal to own just one guinea pig. Why? Because guinea pigs are social animals. Keeping one alone is considered animal abuse. Yes, even rodents have better friendship rights than most humans at family gatherings. There's a lake in Australia called Lake Hillier that's bright pink, like bubblegum pink. No, it's not Photoshop. Scientists think it's due to weird salt-loving bacteria. It's basically a giant strawberry milkshake that would absolutely kill you if you tried to drink it. In ancient Rome, people used crushed mouse brains as toothpaste. Apparently, nothing says fresh breath like the flavor of rodent brains smeared on your teeth at sunrise. Mint flavor? Never heard of her. If you love weird history like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and leave a comment telling me the weirdest fact you've ever heard. I'm ready to be horrified. In Japan, there's a hotel staffed entirely by robots, including a robot dinosaur that checks you in at reception. Nothing says rest and relaxation like being greeted by a prehistoric lizard asking for your credit card. In 1978, a man in Minnesota was fined for having a live bear in the passenger seat of his car. He claimed it was his emotional support bear. Emotional support pets are one thing, but a 500-pound wild animal in traffic? Eek America. In Japan, there's a festival called Hanamara Matsuri, also known as the Festival of the Steel Phallus. Yes, you read that right. This event is entirely dedicated to celebrating giant metal sculptures shaped like male body parts. Originally a Shinto fertility ritual, it now attracts tourists from around the world who want to awkwardly pose with statues they probably won't show their grandma. In Denmark, it's a tradition to throw cinnamon on people who reach the age of 25 without getting married. That's right, if you're single and unlucky enough to have Danish friends with access to spices, expect to get blasted with enough cinnamon to smell like a human bakery for a week. Honestly, it's like being roasted and seasoned by your entire town. There's a remote tribe in Papua New Guinea called the Korowai, famous for building tree houses as high as 140 feet above the ground. And they're not doing this for the view. They build them this high to avoid evil spirits. Nothing like fighting supernatural horror with advanced carpentry skills while casually living in the sky. In Scotland, there's a tradition of blackening the bride or groom before a wedding. Friends and family cover them in treacle, soot, feathers, and flour, turning them into a walking nightmare version of a cake. The logic? If you can survive public humiliation while sticky and disgusting, marriage will be a piece of cake. Literally. There's a town in Norway called Hell, and yes, it freezes over every winter. So the next time someone says, when hell freezes over, just tell them to check the weather forecast in Norway. Bonus points. They even have a train station named Hell Station. Satan's probably out there shoveling snow in a parka. In Japan, there's a theme park where you can pay to be buried alive in a coffin for fun. It's supposed to give you a life-changing experience. Personally, I think I'll pass. I get stressed just being wrapped in a blanket too tightly. In England, there's an annual event called the Cheese Rolling Festival where people literally chase a giant wheel of cheese down a steep hill. And yes, people break bones for it. Imagine explaining to your boss that you can't come to work because you lost a fight with a cheese wheel. In Thailand, there's a monkey buffet festival where thousands of monkeys are treated to a giant feast of fruits, vegetables, and snacks. Basically, it's a luxury brunch, but for hyperactive monkeys who probably have better diets than most college students living on instant noodles. Some rural areas believe that if you sweep the house after sunset, you're sweeping away your luck and wealth. So if you drop crumbs on the floor after dinner, congratulations. They now live there rent-free until morning. Cockroaches must love this ancient superstition. Some people make a living out of playing music to snakes. In remote villages of Sin, snake charmers are called in not just for entertainment, but for pest control. Got a snake problem? Don't call animal control. Call a guy with a flute who'll stare a cobra down like it's his ex. After the Twilight Saga hit the big screen, a group of teenagers in the US took their love for vampires to extreme lengths. Some reportedly tried to live as vampires, wearing dark clothes and refusing to go out in the daylight. One even had fang implants to complete the look. Apparently, the allure of sparkling vampires is strong enough to make people temporarily forget they're human. Ancient Roman schools were brutal. Teachers called ludi magister would beat students for mistakes using a rod. If you thought modern homework was painful, imagine reciting Latin verbs while staring down a guy holding a stick, ready to turn your grammar errors into bruises. In many villages around Pakistan, mirrors are placed outside homes to reflect bad energy or evil spirits. It's like ghost repellent, but make it fashion. If the ghost gets offended by its own reflection, problem solved. Dracula wouldn't last a second there. Some people in rural Pakistan still believe that eating burnt bread or charred rice can cure sore throats. Medicine? No thanks. Pass me that accidentally burnt naan. Apparently, grandma says it's a medical marvel. There's an influencer in the US who gained millions of followers for simply doing nothing. Their entire feed was just them posting photos of their face with absolutely no context or explanation. Sometimes, the more you say nothing, the more people want to watch. The mystery of it all just drew in a curious followers. Guess silence really is golden, or at least viral. After the release of Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill, a man in the UK tried to recreate the famous car chase scene. He drove through a parking lot at high speeds, hoping to channel Uma Thurman's character's epic fight. Instead of being a graceful fight scene, it ended with a collision and the man being arrested for reckless driving. Guess some people take their movie-inspired car stunts a little too seriously. In Greenland, there's a tradition called Hafamik, which is basically a party where the host serves endless coffee and cake. Guests are expected to visit multiple houses in one day and drink coffee at every stop. If you're not vibrating from caffeine by the end, you didn't Hafamik hard enough. At the University of Oxford, there is a rule that students sitting for exams while wearing a sword are allowed to demand free beer. It's a medieval rule that technically still exists. Imagine stressing over calculus, then remembering you forgot your sword and missed out on free booze. In the Louvre, there's an ancient Greek statue known as the Venus de Milo. It's famous not just for its beauty, but for its lack of arms. No one knows how it lost its limbs, and despite being one of the most famous sculptures in history, she's still out there, confidently armless, wondering why no one ever asked her to pick something up. The Hope Diamond is not just a jewel, it's cursed. Legends say it brings bad luck to its owners, and those who've owned it have experienced a series of misfortunes. But hey, if you're into cursed luxury, you can catch it at the Smithsonian Natural History Museum, where it sits safely behind a glass case, waiting to strike. Women's intestines are slightly longer than men's. This is actually a weird evolutionary feature, one that could be blamed for some of the extra time women spend in the bathroom. It's like their bodies are saying, enjoy the extra time in there. You're gonna need it. In Japan, there's an island called Tashirojima, also known as Cat Island, where cats outnumber humans. Locals believe cats bring good luck and prosperity, so they feed and protect them like tiny furry royalty. If you're allergic to cats, this island is your worst nightmare dressed as a tourist attraction. The full moon is thought to incite chaos in human brains. Some studies suggest that there might be a slight uptick in bizarre behavior during a full moon. Whether it's more emergency room visits or just people getting a bit extra weird, it's as if the moon has a special power to amplify everyone's drama levels. Full moons, the natural amplifier for chaos. In the early 2000s, after The Matrix became a global phenomenon, there was a bizarre trend of people trying to unplug from The Matrix. Some took the movie's philosophical undertones so seriously that they believed they were trapped in a simulation. One individual reportedly tried to hack the system by jumping off a building, convinced they could fly like Neo. Thankfully, they survived, but the incident was a reminder of how deeply movies can affect one's perception of reality. In India, there's a temple where rats are considered sacred and roam freely. The Karni Mata temple houses thousands of rats, and devotees feed them milk and sweets. Eating food nibbled by these rats is seen as a blessing. For germaphobes, this place is basically a horror movie with religious approval. The thumbs up emoji has caused international controversy. In some cultures, a thumbs up is a gesture of positivity, but in others, it's considered rude or offensive. So next time you give someone a thumbs up, you might just be unknowingly giving them the international signal for, I'm not happy with this. Bouldering routes, also called problems, often have ridiculous names that are more about creativity than difficulty. You might find yourself scaling a rock called the Lumpy Yeti or Grumpy Monkey while silently questioning your life choices. It's like someone decided climbing was funnier than it really should be, as if bouldering were not difficult on its own. In some bouldering gyms, there are flash challenges where climbers have to solve a bouldering problem blindfolded, using only their sense of touch to find holds. Imagine getting halfway through and realizing you've been grabbing a completely different set of rocks than everyone else. You'll either look like a genius or a complete disaster. If you enjoyed this bizarre fact, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with the weirdest challenge you've ever seen, and don't forget to subscribe for more strange and hilarious facts from around the world. In the early days of bouldering, climbers would use things like tree branches, logs, or even piles of dirt to simulate holds, because actual rock climbing holds were considered too expensive. So for a while, bouldering was basically just throwing yourself at a tree and hoping you don't break anything. The term bouldering comes from the word boulders, but not the kind you might expect. In fact, it originally referred to the act of climbing small rocks, or boulders without ropes, except in the UK, where it was once considered a strange hobby for eccentric people who'd rather climb rocks than, do actual work. In ancient Greece, that students had to memorize everything because writing things down was seen as lazy. Socrates even criticized writing, saying it would ruin memory skills. Imagine failing your philosophy test because you dared to jot down notes like a weak-minded mortal. The earliest known carts were used around 3500 BCE in Mesopotamia. They were essentially wooden platforms with wheels that were pulled by donkeys or oxen. However, these carts were so rudimentary that they probably felt more like dragging a wooden box through the mud than smoothly rolling down the road. Thank goodness for cart upgrades. There's a whole emoji dedicated to a smiling poop. Not just any poop, but a happy, content little turd. Why does this exist? No one knows, but it's now one of the most universally used emojis. So, the next time you're feeling particularly proud of a bathroom break, you can send a poop emoji to share the love. The face with tears of joy emoji is officially the most popular emoji in the world. But did you know it was almost replaced by an emoji depicting laughter with tears? Thankfully it stayed, and now it's used to express everything from genuine laughter to passive-aggressive reactions when someone says something questionable. The mantis shrimp has the most ridiculous vision system known to science. While humans have 3 color receptors, red, green, and blue, these marine lunatics have 16. They can see colors that don't even exist for us. To them, the world probably looks like a psychedelic oil spill wrapped in a rainbow smoothie. Meanwhile, humans are stuck in plain old 4K color mode. At the University of Copenhagen, Denmark, there is an annual naked run called the Friday Bar Naked Run. Students sprint around the university courtyard wearing absolutely nothing, except maybe shoes. The prize? A crate of beer and eternal bragging rights. Nothing says academic pride like being chased by your own dignity. At the University of Toronto, Canada, students have an official anti-calendar, a brutally honest review of every course and professor, created entirely by students. It's like Yelp, but for academia. Some reviews are so savage that even the professors probably cry while reading them. In the 18th century, England had a very creative way of executing people called hanging, drawing, and quartering. A condemned person was first hanged until they were nearly dead, then disemboweled, and finally their body was cut into 4 pieces. This gruesome spectacle was reserved for high treason, as if treason wasn't horrifying enough on its own. Trench rats were no ordinary pests. These monsters grew fat on corpses and leftover food, often reaching the size of small cats. Some soldiers even gave them names or used them for gambling fights. Imagine fighting for your life while a rat named Big Tony watches you from the corner, like he owns the place. The trenches were a cocktail of dead bodies, sweat, urine, rotting food, and chemical weapons. The stench was so powerful it could knock a man down. Some soldiers stuffed tobacco or mint up their noses just to survive the smell without passing out like cartoon characters. Trench periscopes were made from literally anything. To avoid getting sniped, soldiers would build makeshift periscopes using broken mirrors, tin cans, or even biscuit tins. Some of them looked like terrible DIY projects, but hey, when sticking your head up could get it blown off, any reflective garbage became high-tech survival gear. In ancient China, there was a particularly gruesome method of execution called death by 1,000 cuts. The condemned person would be slowly mutilated by having small cuts made all over their body until they eventually died. It's like a terrible art form, but with way more blood and a lot less creativity. Men tend to have a larger liver, which sounds great until you realize that means they also have a higher risk of liver-related issues. So while they're getting that extra storage space, it's like their body handed them more room for trouble. Maybe that's why they can outdrink everyone until they can't. Psychopaths don't yawn when others yawn. Yes, that weird, contagious yawn thing most humans do. Psychopaths often skip it because they lack empathy. So if you're in a room full of yawning people and that one guy is staring at you like a robot from a horror movie, you might want to leave. Pythagoras, the famous Greek mathematician, ran a secretive cult school where students had to stay silent for years before being allowed to speak in class. Silence was seen as a test of discipline. Imagine sitting on mind-blowing math knowledge and not being allowed to say hypotenuse for 5 years. At the University of Chicago, there's a tradition called the scav hunt, the world's largest scavenger hunt. Challenges include things like building a nuclear reactor, not a joke, or stealing bizarre objects. It's the Olympics of weirdness, where being a nerdy genius with too much free time is a survival skill. In 2017, a guy named Daniel Strickland went viral by showing off his influencer lifestyle, spending hours taking selfies while pretending to lead an extravagant life that didn't actually exist. It turns out that he was just posing in public spaces and scamming his followers with luxury appearances, proving that even the most superficial influencer could be a work of fiction. After the release of Jaws in 1975, beachgoers were so terrified of sharks that beach tourism in some areas plummeted. People refused to swim in the ocean for fear of a shark attack, despite the fact that the movie's events were pure fiction. For a while, it seemed like the movie's terror might have caused a nationwide fear of water that had nothing to do with reality. Paracelsus believed you could create life from a human corpse with horse poop. This 16th century alchemist thought he could create a tiny human called a homunculus by burying human sperm in horse manure for 40 days. No lab equipment, just some medieval faith and a whole lot of animal waste. Who even comes up with this? In Nazi Germany, the government banned extravagant fashion, but rebellious youth known as swing kids wore flashy, oversized coats and wild hairstyles to mock the strict regime. Fashion became an actual silent protest. Hard to think that dictators feared messy hair and loose fits. Studies have shown that regular physical activity actually helps you sleep better, but only if you don't exercise right before bed. Otherwise, your body thinks it's still at war with gravity and refuses to shut down for the night. Ancient humans were basically walking cardio machines. Our ancestors ran long distances, not because they loved fitness, but because dinner had legs and ran away. So technically, jogging is just humanity's ancient hunting instinct trying to come back without the spear. In Zimbabwe during the late 2000s, inflation got so out of control that the government printed a $100 trillion note. You could barely buy a loaf of bread with it. People carried wheelbarrows full of cash to buy groceries. That's not economics, that's a comedy sketch gone wrong. In medieval England, King Edward III banned the wearing of fancy clothes by poor people because it confused the social order. If you were broke but stylish, you could literally get fined for looking rich. Fashion police? Number are actual police forcing people to wear ugly outfits? Absolutely. In Bhutan, students taking exams are sometimes required to write answers in verse or poetry form. Imagine explaining a math problem while rhyming like Shakespeare with a headache. 2 trains depart at noon, so their meeting is soon. Trenchfoot was basically nature eating your feet alive. Soldiers in World War I. Trenches would stand for days in waterlogged mud, leading to trenchfoot. This horrifying condition caused their skin to rot, toes to turn black, and in severe cases, feet would literally fall off like overboiled potatoes. It wasn't a battle injury. It was a swamp monster growing inside their boots. Sign languages have their own grammar rules, and it's not just waving hands around randomly. Word order, facial expressions, and even the speed of movement can completely change a sentence. One wrong eyebrow raise and you might accidentally sign angry cat instead of beautiful day. Some ancient tribes in Siberia hunted mammoths by digging massive pits and covering them with branches and snow. Mammoths, in their peaceful cluelessness, would just plop right in. Imagine falling into a hole because someone disguised it with IKEA-level effort. Ancient trolling at its finest. Want more mind-blowing survival tactics from history that prove humans have always been a little extra? Hit that subscribe button and watch our full video. You won't believe what else they came up with. There's a fruit called jabuticaba that looks like grapes, but here's the weird part. It grows directly on the trunk of the tree like pimples on a teenager's face. It's like the tree just gave up on branches and thought, let's grow fruit right here where everyone can trip over it. In 1978, a man in Belgium tried to fly like Superman, inspired by the movie Superman. He jumped off his roof thinking that he could glide using a homemade cape. Needless to say, he didn't fly. He fell. Movies truly have a way of making people believe they can do the impossible. Thankfully, he only suffered minor injuries, but it's a reminder to maybe skip the cape and stay on solid ground. Influencers can turn mundane objects into global trends. Take the Squishmallow plush toy, for example. What started as a simple toy ballooned into a multi-million-dollar craze, all because influencers started sharing their cute collections online. The true power of an influencer, turning a pillow into an overnight sensation with a single post. In ancient Greece, it was believed that the moon could literally drive people insane. They thought the full moon had this magical ability to mess with your mind and behavior. It's like they just sat there waiting for an excuse to call someone crazy after they acted out. There's an influencer in Japan who made a career out of posting photos of their feet. Yes, you read that right. By showing off their feet in various artistic poses, they built an online empire. In an age where everyone wants to be a millionaire, the lesson here is if you've got feet, you've got a business plan. In medieval Europe, the breaking wheel was a favorite method of execution. A condemned person would be strapped to a large wheel, then rolled in front of a crowd before being bludgeoned to death. The idea was to break their bones and leave them hanging in a way that showed just how powerful powerful the state's authority was. Definitely an effective way to crush any hope you had for a second chance. Studies show that many psychopaths can fake emotions with creepy accuracy. They watch others like predators studying prey, copying smiles, laughs, and even crying on command. It's emotional cosplay, but with the energy of a malfunctioning serial killer trying to win an Oscar. At the University of Bologna in Italy, the oldest university in the world, students once paid their professors directly. If the lectures were bad, students could withhold payment. Imagine sitting in class watching your professor struggle through boring slides while you slowly pull your wallet back into your pocket. Harsh but fair. In 1974, the UK put a strict limit on the power of vacuum cleaners. Yes, for real. There was an energy crisis, and instead of cutting down on big factories, the government decided people's carpets were just too clean. The result? A black market for powerful vacuums. The vacuum mafia became a thing. Nikola Tesla fell in love with a pigeon, not a woman, not a machine. A pigeon. Tesla claimed a specific white pigeon visited him regularly and that he loved it as a man loves a woman. He even said the pigeon died in his arms while emitting a mysterious light from its eyes. This wasn't science. This was hardcore Shakespearean tragedy with bird drama. Tycho Brahe had a pet moose that got drunk and fell down the stairs. This famous astronomer kept a pet moose at his castle. He would feed it beer at fancy dinner parties because apparently moose etiquette demands alcohol. Tragically, the poor thing got drunk one night, stumbled down some stairs, and died. Science is wild, but medieval scientists were on a whole other level. The miracle berry sounds like a prank in fruit form. It doesn't taste sweet itself, but after eating it, anything sour, lemons, vinegar, pickles, will taste sugary sweet for about an hour. It's basically nature's way of turning your taste buds into a confused science experiment. Isaac Newton once stared at the sun until he went temporarily blind. Yes, the same genius who gave us gravity thought it would be a cool experiment to stare directly at the sun just to see what happens. The result? Surprise. Surprise. Eye damage? He spent days locked in a dark room recovering like some dramatic Victorian vampire, regretting his life choices. In ancient China, the imperial examination was so hard that some students literally died in the exam halls from stress or exhaustion. The tests lasted for days, inside tiny rooms with no distractions. No water breaks, no bathroom breaks. Just you, your ink brush, and your will to survive. The Buddha's hand fruit looks like yellow, creepy fingers reaching out to grab you while you sleep. It's actually used for its fragrance more than eating. Because let's face it, nobody trusts a fruit that looks like it wants to strangle them in their sleep. Your brain literally works better after exercise. Not because it's magically smarter, but because working out forces more blood and oxygen to your brain. So technically, running away from your problems is good for your mental health, as long as you're wearing sneakers. Some sign languages have regional accents. Yes, you read that right. Just like spoken languages, signs can vary based on region, slang, and local culture. So a person from one city might be signing coffee, while someone from another area thinks they just proposed marriage. Regular physical activity makes your bones stronger, but not in the way lifting a rock would make a rock stronger. Instead, bones respond to impact and weight-bearing exercise by growing denser, like some weird living concrete that refuses to snap under pressure. There's a mountain in Australia called Mount Disappointment. Why? Early explorers climbed it, hoping for a great view, but got blocked by trees, so they named it after their crushed dreams. It's the ultimate passive-aggressive landmark. The Matterhorn in the Alps is so photogenic that Toblerone chocolate bars were designed in its shape. Yes, your favorite triangular snack is basically edible mountain fan art. Imagine a mountain being so iconic that people said, let's bite it. Mount Everest grows taller every year, but not because it hits the gym. Thanks to tectonic plate movement, Everest gains about 4 millimeters annually. Mother Earth is basically flexing very slowly like a grandma doing yoga, but still managing to break records. In China's Tang Dynasty, wealthy women wore false eyebrows made of mouse fur glued to their faces. Yes, their eyebrow game was literally borrowed from tiny rodents. Beauty is pain, but in this case, it's also slightly terrifying. In 1983, a baseball game in Chicago was delayed because of a giant inflatable beer bottle that broke loose and rolled across the field like it was possessed. Fans cheered louder for the rogue beer balloon than the actual players. The beer bottle got more applause than any home run. Vikings wore clothes dyed with urine. They used fermented urine rich in ammonia to bleach and dye wool. So technically, Vikings invented hardcore DIY fashion, just with a horrifying smell as part of the aesthetic. When temperatures drop too low, iguanas in Florida freeze up and literally fall from trees. It rains iguanas like it's a scaly apocalypse. Floridians know it's winter when their yard looks like a reptile-themed horror movie set. Male iguanas go full rockstar during mating season. Their color changes to bright orange to attract females. It's nature's version of wearing neon clothing to say, look at me, I'm emotionally unavailable but very colorful. And maybe we could be friends with benefits. In 1974, a football match in the Congo was stopped because players believed the opposing team was using witchcraft. The goalkeeper swore the ball was disappearing midair. Instead of calling VAR, they called the local shaman. The result? The match descended into a supernatural meltdown. Finland once had a bizarre tradition where high school students took a mandatory swimming test before graduation. The logic? If you could swim across a freezing lake, you could probably survive university too. In Japan, some universities hold entrance exams where part of the test is literally about folding origami or answering questions based on anime plot twists. That's right, pass the test not with formulas, but with paper cranes and cartoon knowledge. In 1998, during a marathon in Mexico, a runner named German Silva took a wrong turn just before the finish line, ran an extra kilometer, and still won. Meanwhile, the audience collectively lost its mind watching him take the scenic route to victory. Ever wondered what happens when your GPS completely fails mid-race? Well, German Silva made it work. If you want to see more jaw-dropping moments from the world of sports that will make you question reality, hit subscribe and watch the full video, because sometimes the journey is the victory, even if it's not the shortest. The Sand people of southern Africa practiced persistence hunting, where they would literally chase animals for hours, sometimes days, until the poor creature collapsed from exhaustion. It was less hunting and more like cardio warfare powered by stubbornness. Some ancient hunters wore animal disguises, like dressing as deer or wolves, to sneak up on prey. Sounds smart until you realize they sometimes get mistaken for actual animals by other hunters. Nothing says awkward like being accidentally speared by your own teammate because your elk costume was too convincing. Physical activity triggers the release of endorphins, chemicals that make you feel happy. But here's the bizarre part. Your body releases the same chemicals during intense laughter or after eating spicy food. So yes, exercising is basically just laughing aggressively with your muscles. North Korea once issued a currency revaluation that wiped out savings overnight. People's life savings turned into pocket change within hours. Imagine working for 30 years and waking up to find your money could only buy a cabbage. That's not fiscal policy. That's villain origin story material. In the trenches of World War I, soldiers made jewelry out of bullets, shrapnel, and coins. Known as trench art, these handmade accessories were swapped, gifted, or kept as good luck charms. Imagine rolling up to a party flexing your grenade fragment necklace like it's a designer piece. Horned melon, also called kiwano, looks like an orange cactus and tastes like cucumber mixed with banana and lime. In other words, like a fruit that couldn't decide what it wanted to be when it grew up. It's basically the awkward teenager of the fruit world. Dogs live in a muted Instagram filter. While dogs are famously colorblind, it's not completely black and white. They see mostly blues and yellows, kind of like a badly aged photo filter that forgot what red and green look like. So that bright red ball you throw, it's basically a weird gray-green orb to them. And yet they still love fetching it like it's gold. The brains of psychopaths literally light up differently when they hurt people. Neuroimaging shows that some psychopaths get pleasure or feel calm when causing pain. While a normal brain screams, "Bad idea," theirs whispers, "More, please." It's like their moral compass was replaced with a gremlin holding a party horn. Puni Puni Poemi features a girl who transforms into an anime superhero who uses the power of obscene humor and random absurdity to fight bad guys. If you ever wanted an anime that doesn't make sense in any language, this one is the key. It's like they threw all logic out the window and let chaos reign. The Mummy of the Unknown Man at the British Museum has baffled historians for years. This ancient Egyptian mummy was wrapped in royal linen, yet no one knows who he is. Some believe he might have been a high-ranking official or even a prince, or maybe just a very unlucky person who never got a name tag. Influencers have been linked to FOMO, fear of missing out, on a psychological level, and studies show that it leads to higher levels of anxiety and depression in their followers. If seeing a beach vacation you'll never afford or a perfectly arranged meal makes you feel terrible, blame the influencer marketing machine. It's basically like watching a very glamorous, very expensive commercial every day. That vintage green glass bowl your grandma has might just be uranium glass. In fact, uranium glass was often used in the production of household items like bowls, cups, and even ashtrays. Your family heirlooms could be emitting tiny radioactive traces. Nothing says vintage like radioactive glow. In South Korea, during their infamous Sunyoung college entrance exam, planes are literally banned from flying over exam halls to avoid distracting students. The whole country goes silent. Even stock markets open late. One exam to rule them all, and absolute silence to fuel the terror. While the 2011 earthquake in Japan was catastrophic, it was the tsunami that followed that triggered the Fukushima disaster. The tsunami overwhelmed the power systems of the nuclear plant, shutting down cooling systems and causing the reactors to overheat. It's like a series of unfortunate events where the natural world teamed up to wreak havoc. When the Fukushima disaster struck, a group of 50 workers volunteered to stay behind, and manually manage the cooling systems at the plant, risking their lives to prevent a full meltdown. They became known as the Fukushima 50, and their bravery is often hailed as a heroic stand against the odds. They essentially became human shields for an entire nation's safety. Mount Etna in Italy has its own volcano deity that was thought to throw tantrums in the form of lava spitting. Locals used to believe a giant monster named Typhon was trapped under it. Every eruption, Typhon is having a meltdown like a mythical Karen who didn't get her way. Scientists discovered that certain strains of bacteria living near the Fukushima plant could actually break down radioactive materials. These tiny organisms might hold the key to cleaning up some of the mess left by the disaster, potentially turning the tables on the destructive forces of nature with nature itself. Go figure. Nature creating nature's cleanup crew. Some iguanas can survive underwater for up to 30 minutes. Marine iguanas of the Galapagos Islands even dive into the ocean like professional swimmers to feed on algae. Basically, they're sea dragons with a salad addiction. The classic Cobb salad, popular in the United States, was reportedly invented in 1937 by Robert Cobb, the owner of the Brown Derby restaurant in Hollywood. One night, he was hungry and decided to throw together leftover ingredients, including chicken, bacon, avocado, and blue cheese. It became an accidental masterpiece. Who knew hunger could lead to a salad that's now a menu staple? In Finland, there's a dish called silly salad, a rather odd name for a salad, but it's not just the name that's strange. The salad is made with smoked fish, raw onions, and mashed potatoes, then doused in cream or mayonnaise. It's the ultimate blend of hearty and creamy, and doesn't quite match what most of the world would think of as a salad. In Japan, Mount Fuji is considered spiritually female, and ancient women weren't allowed to climb it because they might anger the goddess of the mountain. Because apparently nothing scares ancient men like a woman conquering nature and patriarchy at the same time. In ancient Rome, crucifixion wasn't just for Jesus. Sometimes it was used to execute slaves, criminals, and even entire villages. The Romans would hang people on crosses for days, sometimes letting them starve or be attacked by animals, making it one of the most drawn-out and terrifying ways to die. Talk about overkill. It may sound like something out of a cartoon, but laughing too hard has actually caused a few people to die. It's a condition known as lacrimatory syncope, a combination of excessive laughter and a sudden drop in blood pressure, which can lead to fainting or even heart failure. So, the next time you laugh too hard, maybe consider dialing it back just a little. A particularly bizarre injury occurred in the UK when a man was struck by a falling pigeon. While this might sound like something straight out of a slapstick comedy, the man actually suffered a broken nose. Apparently, the pigeon flew into his face with such force that he lost balance and fell, leading to a rather peculiar and painful injury. In 1952, the Italian car company Fiat made an actual car, Fiat 500, but with an unusual twist. The body was made from wood, not metal. The company wanted to test how wood could be used as a lightweight material for car design. Unfortunately, this wooden marvel didn't last long on the roads and was eventually shelved for more durable options. In 1889, a French inventor, Count Albert de Dion, designed a car that had 3 wheels and was powered by a steam engine. The de Dion Bouton had 1 wheel in the front and 2 at the back, making it look more like a tricycle for grown-ups than a car. It's the automotive equivalent of trying to ride a bicycle on a caffeine binge. Philosophical theology has a long-standing debate over whether everything that happens is preordained by God, theological determinism, or if humans have free will to make choices. This gives rise to the paradox of human responsibility. If everything is predetermined by God, can humans truly be held accountable for their actions? Some theologians argue that we're stuck in a divine game of chess with each of our moves determined, but somehow still giving us the illusion of control. It's like playing a game where the instructions keep changing. Frustrating, but a lot to think about. The ontological argument proposed by philosopher Anselm of Canterbury suggests that God's existence can be proven purely through logic. The argument states that if we can conceive of a perfect being in our minds, then that being must exist in reality, because a perfect being, by definition, cannot be imperfect, which would include not existing. So, in essence, this argument tries to convince us that God's existence is self-evident, just because we can imagine it. Talk about a cosmic brain teaser. In 2012, a Picasso painting was found behind a mirror in a house that was being renovated. The artwork was hidden for decades, unnoticed and tucked away behind a reflective surface. How did it get there? It seems that a former owner had hidden the valuable painting during World War II to avoid it being stolen. It was like the art world's version of hiding in plain sight, but with a twist of mystery and intrigue. While not an outbreak in the traditional sense, in 1932, Australia found itself in a bizarre conflict known as the Great Emu War. After World War I, farmers in Western Australia struggled with emus raiding their crops. The Australian military was called in to battle the birds, but the emus proved incredibly elusive and resilient, and despite the use of machine guns, the military was forced to retreat. This remains one of the oddest and most absurd absurd conflicts in history. Want to see how a bunch of giant birds took down an entire army? Hit subscribe and check out our full video on the Great Emu War, because sometimes it's not the humans who win the battle. In the 1950s, an entire village in Alaska became sick with a mysterious illness that had symptoms similar to the flu but led to death in a large number of cases. The outbreak was eventually traced to the consumption of spoiled whale blubber, which had been contaminated by bacteria. The bizarre thing? The illness seemed to disappear as quickly as it had arrived, with no further outbreaks in the region. In 2004, a couple was shocked to discover their lost wedding ring, which had been missing for over 50 years encased in the trunk of a tree. It was found when the tree was being chopped down, and the ring was perfectly preserved inside a knot in the wood. Perhaps this tree was just holding on to their love for half a century. One might even call it true love, grown into nature. In 2007, treasure hunters uncovered a pirate's chest in the Caribbean, but amid the gold and jewels was something much stranger: a fossilized T-Rex tooth. How did this fossil end up with pirates? Theories are wild, but one suggestion is that it could have been part of a collection of exotic items or a strange, misplaced souvenir from a long-forgotten expedition. A very Jurassic Pirates kind of situation. The microscope was invented in the 17th century by Dutch scientist Antonia van Leeuwenhoek, who used a simple lens to look at the invisible world. Imagine the first time he peered into a drop of water and thought, "Oh, look at all these tiny creatures, I'm going to need a bigger petri dish." Talk about microscopic pets. In medieval Europe, falconry wasn't just a hobby, it was a fashion statement. Nobles would parade around with fancy birds on their arms like they were carrying expensive handbags with wings. The rarer the bird, the more flex-worthy your status. In medieval China, the imperial examination for government jobs lasted 3 whole days, and candidates were locked in small cells with nothing but paper, ink, and their nightmares. Some students brought their own food, some starved, and some, well, didn't make it out alive. In the Arctic tundra, reindeer have evolved to see UV light so they can detect things humans can't, like urine trails from other animals or moss glowing on snow. Basically, reindeer are living in a high-contrast UV spy movie while we're fumbling with sunglasses wondering where the trail went. Aspirin has been around for centuries, originally made from willow bark, which ancient people chewed to relieve pain. Imagine the first person who decided to chew on bark and thought, "This tastes awful, but hey, my headache's gone." Fast forward to today and we've turned that bark into a magic pill. The placebo effect is when you feel better just because you think you've taken medicine, even if it's just a sugar pill. It's like your brain saying, "Oh, you gave me something. Guess I'll start feeling better now," even though nothing's changed. Your brain is basically a really convincing actor. Insulin helps regulate your blood sugar, but here's the kicker. It's not a sugar buster, it's a sugar usher. It helps sugar, aka glucose, move from your blood into your cells where it can be used for energy. Basically, insulin is like a bouncer at a club, making sure only the right sugars get in while keeping the riffraff out. Your immune system cannibalizes itself. Ever had a moment when you feel like your body is out of control? Well, your immune system sometimes eats its own cells in a process called autophagy. It's like your body going on a weird internal diet, eating the bad bits. If only it would skip dessert and go for the junk DNA instead. Stress makes your immune system take a sick day. Stress doesn't just ruin your mood, it can literally mess with your immune system. High stress can reduce your white blood cells, leaving you wide open for infections. So next time you're stressed, just remember, your immune system is throwing in the towel while you're running on fumes. For colorblind people, red-green perception is often the tricky part. But here's the weird twist. They often see the world in a way that's way more vibrant, with some people claiming to see a whole new color combo. It's like your brain pulling a fast one on you, creating new color variations that aren't even on the regular rainbow list. Hemp is the fabric that's been underestimated for centuries. Hemp has been around for thousands of years as a source of fabric, but only recently has it started getting its due attention. It's like the quiet, nerdy kid in school who eventually became the CEO. Hemp is super durable, eco-friendly, and was even used to make sails for ships. Who knew? Bamboo, that plant you're probably more familiar with as a snack for pandas, is also a source. It's like bamboo took a detour from its role as the panda's personal chef and decided to enter the fashion world. Not only is it eco-friendly, but it's soft, breathable, and naturally antibacterial. Basically the superhero of fabrics. Cotton is grown from plants that have fluffy white fibers, making it feel like you're picking clouds straight from the ground. But don't get too excited. Those clouds are the result of some seriously sneaky plants, tricking you into thinking you're picking soft pillows when when it's really going to need a lot of time and effort to turn into fabric. Forget fancy SPF lotions. Ancient Egyptians would slather mud on their skin to protect themselves from the sun. It's like they invented earthy SPF long before any dermatologist could get a patent. Who needs sunscreen when you can rock the mud facial look? In 1895, Wilhelm Röntgen accidentally discovered X-rays while playing around with cathode rays in his lab. He didn't even know what he had found at first. He was just tinkering with stuff. So, no, it wasn't some grand scientific eureka moment. It was more like, hey, what's this glowing box? Let's see what happens if I put my hand in it. When historians finally acknowledged that Vikings likely reached North America long before Columbus, it was an epic oops moment. It's like finding out your childhood myth was true, but now you're the last one to know. Sorry, Christopher Columbus. Vikings beat you to the punch by about 500 years. Antibiotics work by attacking bacteria, but they don't actually kill bacteria in the traditional sense. They just stop bacteria from multiplying. It's like sending in an army of super nerds to stop the bad guys from multiplying while leaving them alive and possibly frustrated. Humans can only see a tiny portion of the light spectrum, known as the visible spectrum, which makes up about a tiny fraction of all light. So there are colors out there in the infrared and ultraviolet realms that your eyes literally can't detect. It's like missing a whole rainbow, but nature's just showing off its secret palette. In 2015, archaeologists discovered a mummified body in a pyramid that had been lost for centuries. The shocking part? The mummy was found inside a sealed, secret chamber in Egypt's Saqqara pyramid, a place believed to be void of human remains. So this ancient royal burial ground held its biggest surprise millennia after the fact, almost as if the past was playing an eternal game of hide-and-seek. In tech, many gadgets like the famous Oculus Rift were initially designed for men's heads. This resulted in women getting motion sickness or discomfort when using them. It wasn't until women complained about this that companies started designing more inclusive versions. So guess what? Women were just an afterthought in the next-gen tech race. While historians were translating ancient cuneiform texts, they were shocked to discover love letters tucked among administrative documents. Turns out, ancient Assyrian scribes were as prone to writing heartfelt and occasionally awkward love notes as we are today. Who knew that history had a romantic side? Petri dishes were invented in 1887 by German bacteriologist Julius Richard Petri. He didn't just want a regular plate, though. He needed something flat, shallow, and transparent to culture bacteria. So he made the Petri dish and basically gave bacteria their personal restaurant. Bon appetit, tiny microbes. In the 1950s, the Chrysler Corporation introduced a concept car called the Chrysler Norseman that had a glass roof that was literally floating. The car's roof was supported by pillars that were built into the door frame, creating the illusion of a roof suspended in midair. Sure, it's futuristic, but I wonder how many heads would have hit that floating glass. Some psychologists argue that procrastination is actually linked to our primitive instincts for survival. It's like your brain is trying to avoid the stress of doing things by convincing you that delaying is a good idea, because who doesn't love ignoring responsibilities like a caveman avoiding a saber-toothed tiger? When crash test dummies were first created, they were modeled after the average male body. This meant that the car safety systems were designed for men, ignoring how women's bodies might respond in crashes. So, women were literally crash tested with worse odds, all because car designers thought, just make it for the dudes. Sharks have a natural defense against the sun. They produce oils in their skin that act like a natural sunscreen. Imagine being so cool that you don't even need SPF 30. Sharks basically invented the "I woke up like this" defense against the sun. While we love eating them, bananas might just be hiding a secret. The peels contain compounds that, when crushed and applied, can help block UV rays. So next time you snack on one, don't toss that peel. Rub it on your skin like an all-natural sunblock. Curious about more weird food facts that could actually change your life? Hit subscribe and watch our full video on how everyday snacks might be hiding superpowers. You'll never look at your fruit bowl the same way again. Historians once thought that the Egyptian pyramids were simply giant tombs until they realized they were basically elaborate, oversized storage units for royal belongings, not just final resting places. So the grand monuments might have been glorified storage sheds. What a plot twist. Oddly enough, procrastination can sometimes be beneficial for creativity. When you delay a task, your brain is working in the background, solving problems in a more abstract way. So when you finally get around to doing something, you might come up with a wildly creative solution. It's like your brain throws a little creative party while you're binge-watching your favorite show. It's scientifically proven that women, on average, can distinguish between more shades of color than men. Maybe that's why your mom's always able to pick out 37 different shades of beige in paint stores while you're still stuck trying to figure out the difference between seafoam and mint. It's a superpower, really. The longest train station in the world is in Japan, with the station stretching over 1.5 kilometers. It's so long that you might need a snack and a nap just to walk from one end to the other. Forget waiting for your train. You'll need a good pair of shoes just to get to the platform. Historians once argued about whether hot dogs should be classified as sandwiches. Some debated whether the bun and the sausage counted as a sandwich, while others were busy making hot dogs a legitimate subject for historical research. Could you imagine the serious face-off between history nerds on this one? Allergies are when your immune system goes a bit overboard, deciding that harmless things like pollen or peanuts are evil invaders. It's like calling in the SWAT team to stop a paper cut. Your immune system's reaction is so dramatic, could win an Oscar for best performance in an allergic meltdown. In 2018, workers discovered a message from the 19th century stuffed inside a bottle of whiskey during a routine check on an old barrel in a distillery in Scotland. The letter, written in the 19th century, was apparently tucked away by a former worker. It's the kind of secret that for over a century sat there aging like the whiskey itself, until curiosity and time finally uncorked it. In Russia, there are train stations that no longer exist but still appear on maps. These phantom stations are left over from the Soviet era. It's like the ghost of trains past showing up on your GPS for no reason. Get on the wrong platform, you might just find yourself in a station that's, well, not really there. If you stare at a color for long enough, you'll start seeing an afterimage of its complementary color. For example, staring at a red object for a while and then looking at a white background might make you see green. It's like your brain's way of trying to pull a fast one on you, like, oh, you like red? How about a surprise green? 2004, a man in the US was struck by a meteorite while standing outside. He was hit on the shoulder by a rock from space, specifically a meteorite that had fallen to Earth. Fortunately, he wasn't seriously injured, but he did become part of an incredibly rare club of people who've been directly hit by a meteorite. In 2015, a woman in the UK was hospitalized after suffering severe injuries from a vampire bite. No, not from an actual vampire, but from a giant hickey given by her partner. The suction of the hickey caused blood vessels to burst, leading to a hematoma on her neck. Be careful where you put your lips. Sometimes they can do more harm than good. Believe it or not, it's possible to fracture a rib just by coughing too hard. People with conditions like chronic bronchitis or emphysema are especially susceptible to this injury. So next time you have a rough cough, maybe take a little extra care. Not all broken ribs come from boxing matches. Ancient Egyptians used trained cheetahs for hunting. Yes, these people basically invented the original sports car, but with fur and claws. They would blindfold the cheetah, release it like a furry missile toward prey, and then casually collect dinner while the big cat did all the work. In 1990, during a cricket match between England and India, a swarm of bees attacked the field. Players dropped to the ground instantly like it was a tactical military operation. Turns out cricket strategy books forgot to mention bee invasion as a possible game interruption. Paracetamol, or acetaminophen, is one of the most commonly used painkillers, but scientists still aren't totally sure how it works. It's like the medicine equivalent of a magician's trick. No one knows exactly how it does its thing, but it's still a crowd favorite. It just makes pain disappear, and we're all like, thanks, magic pill. In Bolivia, there's a train station made entirely of salt. It's part of the salt flats, and trains don't even stop there anymore. It's like the ultimate salt bay station, except instead of seasoning your food, it just leaves you wondering how much salt you can handle in one place. In Japan, there's a train station submerged underwater. The station is located beneath a body of water and is only accessible by diving through it. It's a bit like a train to the underworld experience. They're just waiting for a sequel to the Titanic, but with more trains. Ever heard of the 5-minute rule? It's a procrastinator's sneaky trick to get started. Just commit to a task for 5 minutes. But once you start, you often get so absorbed you end up working for hours. It's basically your brain's way of tricking you into actually doing something without feeling like you're committing to a marathon. A standard deck of 52 cards has more possible combinations than there are atoms in the known universe. So next time you lose a card game, just tell yourself it's statistically improbable that you could have won anyway. Poker is older than you think. While poker's been popularized in recent years, its roots go all the way back to the 16th century in Europe. The game evolved from a French game called poker, which, you guessed it, was a lot of bluffing and pretending to be cooler than you actually were. Even back then, poker faces were vital. Guess we've all been pretending since the 1500s. A man in Florida went to the hospital after he accidentally pierced his tongue on a lemon seed. He was enjoying a citrusy drink when a seed lodged in his tongue, causing him to swallow it. It caused an internal injury that required medical attention. Before it became a solo game beloved by bored office workers worldwide, solitaire was originally a card game played in groups. In fact, some historians believe it was invented as a way for royal families to teach patience and strategy. Today, we mostly use it to procrastinate during work hours. Want more bizarre history and tech fails mixed with hilarious facts? Hit subscribe and check out the full video where we break down how the past and present collided in the weirdest ways.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The useless show.
Potatoes went to space before some countries got color TV. In 1995, NASA grew potatoes on the Space Shuttle Columbia to test space farming. So, technically, potatoes are more intergalactic travelers than most of us. Somewhere in space, there's probably a lonely potato floating around wondering why nobody added butter. The old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee, which was turned into a train station, is known for being one of the most haunted places in the U.S. Imagine waiting for your train while ghostly apparitions and creepy sounds surround you. Maybe the only thing scarier than missing your train is being stuck with a ghost as your seatmate. Designers who make clothing unisex often forget to actually accommodate the differing body types of men and women. Unisex clothing often fits men better because it's designed with broader shoulders, and women's figures get the short end of the stick. It's like the concept of one size fits all really just means one size fits the male body. In some sign languages, there are signs specifically for swearing, and they're so creative it makes spoken insults look lazy. Imagine flipping someone off with 3 fingers, a head tilt, and an eyebrow raise. It's practically performance art. Some psychopaths have a reduced startle response, meaning they don't flinch at loud noises or scary things like normal people. While most of us would jump at a sudden bang, psychopaths might just sit there blinking slowly like a glitchy NPC waiting to ruin someone's life. In today's digital age, it's not uncommon for people to suffer from a condition called texting thumb, which is essentially repetitive stress injury from typing too much on their phones. This can cause pain, swelling, and even tendonitis in your thumb, making texting feel more like a workout than communication. People who procrastinate are often perfectionists. They'll delay tasks because they fear they won't do them perfectly. So instead of starting a project, they sit around and worry about making it flawless. That's like avoiding a party because you're afraid your dancing won't be flawless. And then not dancing at all. Saregama was once sung to animals. In ancient Indian villages, farmers literally sang saregama notes to their cows and buffaloes. The belief? It made them give more milk. Imagine a cow standing there judging your vocal range like a grumpy talent show judge. Moo, flat note, 0 milk today. In Japanese folklore, if you mistreat your umbrella, yes, the thing that saves you from rain might turn into a one-eyed, hopping ghost with a giant tongue. Imagine being late for work, and your umbrella starts chasing you down the street like, "Forgot me again, huh?" Broccoli is basically a lab-created mutant. Broccoli didn't naturally grow in the wild. Humans bred it from a wild mustard plant. In fact, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, and Brussels sprouts are all the same species, just different versions created by selective breeding. It's like the vegetable version of a bizarre reality show spin-off, where everyone looks related, but insists they're totally different. Chihuahuas are the living proof of humans wanting chaos in their pockets. They are descendants of the ancient Tachichi dog from Mexico, but human breeders shrank them down into jittery, ankle-biting gremlins that could fit inside a teacup. The result? A 3-pound dog with the confidence of a lion and the nervous energy of a caffeine-addicted squirrel. Saregama notes were linked to planets. Ancient musicians believed that each note corresponded to a planet in the solar system. So technically, singing badly wasn't just embarrassing, it was messing with cosmic energies. Forget karaoke, these people thought missing a note might cause a solar eclipse. Folk songs were actually secret gossip channels. In many Indian villages, women used folk songs to throw shade at in-laws or complain about their husbands, but in code. These spicy lyrics sounded innocent until you realized they were calling someone lazy, bald, or stingy, all while clapping along in rhythm. Tomatoes were once displayed like exotic jewelry. In Renaissance Italy, tomatoes were so rare and suspicious that people didn't eat them. They placed them as fancy decorations in their homes. Yes, some people used to decorate tables with what we now squish into ketchup packets. History really had weird interior design goals, and Sardinia, Italy, has one of the highest concentrations of centenarians, people who are more than 100 years old. The secret? Goat cheese, wine, and climbing hills like it's a gym membership. Their version of cardio is chasing goats uphill at age 102. Have you ever considered being electrocuted by a fruit? The electric fruit, or buzz button, Acmella oleracea, doesn't technically fizz, but when you chew it, your mouth feels like it licked a battery. It's like your taste buds are being electrocuted at a disco party. Numbness, tingling, and a tiny mouthquake included. In 1806, a chicken in Leeds, England, allegedly laid eggs with "Christ is coming" written on them. People freaked out, thinking the end was near. Turns out the owner was writing on the eggs and shoving them back inside the poor bird like a poultry prank gone demonic. The Great Disappointment of 1844 is exactly what it sounds like. Preacher William Miller convinced thousands that the world would end on October 22nd, 1844. Spoiler, nothing happened. People sold everything, then awkwardly realized they still had rent due and no apocalypse to blame it on. In 1902, many believed that Halley's Comet would poison Earth's atmosphere with toxic gases. People bought comet pills to survive. Yes, humanity literally trusted a random guy selling fake space medicine more than actual science. The comet left, people stayed, broke and breathing fine. For years, historians have argued about Napoleon Bonaparte's height. Some claimed he was short, others argued he was of average height for his time. Turns out the confusion stemmed from differing French and British measurements, so history was basically built on Napoleon's height being a political weapon. Talk about petty. In 2007, a man in the UK reportedly broke his neck from looking at his phone. The phenomenon, known as text neck, happens when people lean their heads down at an angle for prolonged periods, like while scrolling through social media or texting. It's like your phone's trying to break your neck while you're trying to stay connected. It turns out that many smartphones are designed to fit comfortably in male hands. The average woman's hands are smaller, so they often has a harder time using phones with big screens, especially when trying to reach across the whole display. So basically, it's like the phone was built to fit a giant, not your hand. The Bunsen burner, that iconic lab tool, was invented in 1855 by Robert Bunsen. Before that, scientists used candles or just plain fire to heat things. Imagine trying to conduct delicate experiments with a candle flickering in your face. So Bunsen thought, let's make fire more consistent, and gave us the glorious, predictable flame. Your immune system is as unique as your fingerprint, except it doesn't need a fancy business card. Its DNA markers are your personal security detail. No one else has the exact same immune system. So while your friends might get the flu, you've got the VIP, disease-free pass. Wild bananas were a nightmare, full of giant, rock-hard seeds that could break your teeth faster than a bad fall. So humans bred them into the soft, seedless versions we know today. The catch? Modern bananas are sterile clones. Every banana is basically a copy-pasted fruit living a weird monoculture existence. Early animators used live cockroaches to trace movement for bug characters. Yep, before motion capture, some studios just let roaches loose on paper and traced their scampering for authentic insect movement. Imagine getting paid to chase cockroaches for art. Disney's Steamboat Willie sound effects? Half were made using rubber gloves, pots, and literal farm animals. Legend says the squeaky sounds came from real mice accidentally present in the sound room. The mice were unpaid interns, obviously. The ancient Romans had a wild fashion rule. Purple dye was so rare and expensive that it was only allowed for emperors or high-ranking officials. The dye came from crushing thousands of tiny sea snails. Imagine wearing a royal toga and casually knowing your clothes were basically made from oceanic bug juice. In camel wrestling, yes, it exists. Camels are encouraged to wrestle each other during mating season to show dominance. The twist? Spectators gamble on the camels while dodging spit attacks and grumpy beasts charging into the crowd. Romantic? Nope. Wild. Absolutely. Early Japanese anime in the early 20th century was drawn on rice paper, delicate, easy to rip, and hilariously disastrous for action scenes. Imagine spending days animating a samurai fight only to sneeze and destroy half your work. One accidental cough and poof, there goes your epic showdown. Want more chaotic behind-the-scenes moments from animation history? Smash that subscribe button and watch our full video, because nothing says dedication like battling dust particles while drawing sword fights on snack paper. Some desert cactus fruits have a tiny fizzy sensation when eaten fresh due to trapped moisture and their odd internal chemistry. It's like nature wanted desert survival to feel like sipping flat soda while dodging thorns and heat stroke. South African legend says the tokoloshi is an evil little goblin that bites your toes while you sleep. This is why many people used to raise their beds off the ground. Not for style, but because nobody wants their feet chewed at 2 a.m. by a grumpy goblin. Tug of war was once an Olympic sport. And here's the kicker. Teams could be made of policemen. Yes, actual cops competed, swinging batons before matches and looking like they were about to break up a riot, not win a gold medal by yanking people across mud. In chess boxing, players alternate between chess rounds and boxing rounds. That's right. 1 minute, you're strategizing with pawns. The next, you're getting punched in the face. It's the only sport where you can win by checkmate or knockout. Nerds and jocks finally joined forces, violently. Trenches had a latrine zone that was basically a muddy horror story. There were specific parts of the trenches for relieving yourself, but since they were often overfilled or destroyed by shelling, soldiers would sometimes just go wherever they could. It wasn't uncommon to sleep beside a puddle of sewage while being shelled. Hygiene was a myth at that point. In 2011, Harold Camping predicted the rapture would happen on May 21st. Billboards screamed warnings worldwide. When May 21st passed peacefully, he pushed it to October. When October passed too, well, let's just say Harold became the king of, wait, I can explain. The human brain is weirdly wired. When procrastinators avoid important tasks, they don't just sit idly. They often end up doing totally random things. It's like you set out to write an essay, but somehow you end up reorganizing your entire bookshelf by color and size and the number of times you've actually read the books. Weirdly productive, right? In medieval times, people thought the moon controlled everything from mental illness to tides, and even the menstrual cycle. It was as if the moon was this ancient force, gently or not so gently pulling on humans like a puppet master, making sure everyone acted a little stranger when it was around. In ancient Indian universities like Nalanda, monks and scholars debated for hours in public courts, often over the tiniest details of philosophy or science. Some debates lasted days, and yes, if you lost, it was considered social humiliation. It wasn't just about knowledge, it was about absolutely roasting your opponent with facts. In 2018, an influencer reportedly made $1 million by simply posting an ad for a luxury brand on Instagram. The catch? The influencer had no followers. Yes, zero. The company was just so enamored with the idea of influencer marketing that they went ahead and paid the influencer a hefty sum anyway. Moral of the story: sometimes it's not the followers, but the name and the idea that can create the hype. Bees see ultraviolet disco lights. Bees aren't just buzzing around aimlessly. They can see ultraviolet light, which makes flowers look like neon dance floors to them. What looks like a boring yellow daisy to us might look like a glowing Target sign saying, "Free nectar here," to a bee. Nature basically installed UV party lights just for insects. Sign language includes signs for abstract and ridiculous concepts too, like procrastination, awkward, or even alien invasion. Sign languages aren't just about basics. They have the sass, sarcasm, and bizarre humor baked right in without making a single sound. Humans would go to any length to water their food, even if it meant using their own secreted nitrogen. In parts of the world, people dilute human urine to use as a nitrogen-rich watering method. It's the golden elixir for plants, quite literally. Your tomatoes might taste fresh, but just don't ask about their hydration history. People used to believe bathing was dangerous. In a shocking twist of hygiene horror, many thought water could open your pores and let diseases sneak in like burglars. So instead of showers, they just layered perfume on top of filth. The Renaissance was where paintings flourished, but soap died a lonely death. Michelangelo hated painting the Sistine Chapel. He was a sculptor, not a painter, and spent 4 years grumbling upside down on scaffolding. He even wrote poems about his aching neck and paint-filled nostrils. So next time you stare in awe at that ceiling, remember it was brought to you by sheer rage and back pain. A London skyscraper nicknamed the Walkie-Talkie reflected sunlight so intensely that it melted parts of nearby cars. Park there too long and your bumper becomes soup. The solution: sunglasses for the building. Seriously, they gave it shades. Falling coconuts kill around 150 people worldwide each year. That's more than shark attacks. On tropical islands, lying under a palm tree might seem romantic, until one of nature's bowling balls takes you out like a beachside assassin. Kazakhstan has a navy for a sea that's disappearing. The Aral Sea has been drying up for decades, but the country still has a naval fleet. It's like organizing a water polo team in a kiddie pool. The ships are basically parked in what's now just a salty sandbox of broken dreams and fish ghosts. The octopuses are bullying teens of the ocean. In 2017, a diver in California reported being ambushed by a giant Pacific octopus that wrapped its tentacles around his head and tried to yank off his mask. The diver escaped, but not before the octopus stole his GoPro. That's right, the sea creature pulled off a literal underwater mugging. There was a goat that hated politics. In 2016, a Kenyan politician had to cancel a rally because an angry goat kept headbutting the podium and trying to climb onto the stage. The goat apparently had very strong opinions and no tolerance for campaign speeches. Democracy was defeated by a four-legged anarchist. Snake Island exists and humans aren't welcome. Off the coast of Brazil is Ilha da Queimada Grande, better known as Snake Island. It's home to thousands of deadly golden lancehead vipers. It's so dangerous, the Brazilian government banned humans from setting foot there. Basically, it's nature's version of a restraining order. Eat raw or undercooked meat, and you might score yourself a tapeworm that sets up camp in your intestines rent-free. These freeloaders can grow up to 30 feet long, turning your digestive system into a luxury worm condo. Imagine explaining to your doctor that your stomach ache is because you ate sushi and birthed a linguine-sized invader. Texting was a full-body workout. Sending a single LOL took approximately 37 thumb jabs thanks to T9 predictive text. Typing a love letter? That was a marathon. You had to press 7 4 times just to get an S. By the end, your thumbs were jacked like they were training for a secret Olympic event. Phones were basically indestructible tanks. Drop a keypad phone from a second story? It wouldn't even flinch. It would bounce once, land perfectly upright, and casually ask if you wanted to play Snake. These things could survive a meteor strike, and your grandma probably still has one that works better than your new smartphone. Artificial seeds can be injected into the ground like vaccines. Yep, farmers don't even need to bury these fancy nuggets. Some artificial seeds can be jabbed into the ground with syringes or seed guns, like giving Mother Nature a flu shot. That sprouts into spinach. In some rare conditions, fermentation due to heat or overripeness, watermelons can build up carbon dioxide and fizz when cut open, basically turning into a fruity landmine that explodes sweet, carbonated sadness everywhere. In Irish folktales, the Irish puka is a shape-shifting trickster that sometimes appears as a black horse or rabbit. It either gives you a wild, unwanted midnight ride or whispers doom in your ear. Basically, it's folklore's version of getting stuck in an Uber with the world's worst driver. Pugs are man-made snort machines. Ancient breeders thought it was adorable to squash a dog's face until it wheezed like an old accordion. Pugs' flat faces and huge eyes are the result of intense human meddling. They're cute, sure, but most of them struggle to breathe, sleep, or even eat without sounding like a tiny, exhausted tractor. There's a floating bamboo drip system in India. Some northeastern tribes rig bamboo pipes across mountains, using gravity to move water from streams to fields in slow, rhythmic drips. It's like nature's leaky plumbing system, but intentionally designed. Plumbing has never felt so majestic or mossy. Chickens run entire islands. On the Hawaiian island of Kauai, wild chickens roam freely like they own the place. After hurricanes destroyed coops in the 80s and 90s, the birds went rogue and multiplied like feathery anarchists. Now they strut around beaches, crow at 3 a.m., and challenge cars with zero fear. Want to see what happens when chickens go full rebel mode? Hit subscribe and watch our full video, because nothing says paradise like being ruled by a gang of clucking winged delinquents with zero respect for traffic laws. Some islands have their own languages. On the island of Silbo Gomero, part of the Canary Islands, people use a whistled language to communicate across deep ravines. That's right. People literally whistle entire conversations. So if you ever hear high-pitched tunes on a hike, they might not be birds gossiping. It's probably just island tea. A high-tech airport in Berlin spent billions, only to discover its fire evacuation doors opened inward. Yes, in a panic, people would be running into doors they had to pull toward them. Fire hazard meets reverse psychology. Some artificial seeds don't need pollination. These are the introverts of the plant kingdom. No bees, no romance, no awkward cross-pollination Tinder dates. Just pure cloned perfection from lab-grown embryos. Mother Nature's social life. Bypassed. In ancient China, pigs were raised under toilets so their poop could fall directly into a composting system below that fed crops. Yes, it was nature's very own poop-to-plate delivery system. Efficient? Yes. Hygienic? Let's just say food safety inspectors would have fainted. There's an entire academic field studying icon design. Yes, iconography in user interface design is a legit scholarly topic. Experts spend years analyzing whether a tiny gear or a 3-line hamburger best represents settings. It's basically emoji psychology with more existential crises. The bridge that wobbled itself into fame. London's Millennium Bridge opened in 2000 and immediately started wobbling like a drunken tightrope walker. Pedestrians walked in sync, unintentionally, creating a terrifying, human-powered earthquake. It had to be closed 2 days after opening. Moral: never underestimate the power of confused tourists. The non-functional escalator to nowhere. In a shopping mall in China, someone installed an escalator that went up to a wall. No doors, no hallway, just concrete. A beautiful example of build first, think later architecture. At least your journey ends with a firm metaphor for life. In Japan, an apartment building was built on one side of its foundation, literally not centered, and started leaning like a sleepy toddler. Turns out they didn't drill all the foundation supports. It was less engineering and more Jenga on hard mode. E. coli is a microscopic menace with bathroom consequences. This bacterium loves to hang out in undercooked beef and can turn a calm day into a toilet-based thriller. It causes explosive problems so intense they should come with a warning label. May cause you to rethink your entire dietary existence. Queen Elizabeth I basically wore her wealth. She was so obsessed with showing off that her gowns were covered in pearls, jewels, and embroidery thick enough to stop a blade. Her closet was less wardrobe and more bank vault with sleeves. Fashion was war, and Elizabeth came dressed to conquer. Napoleon's coronation robe had more gold than a pirate's fantasy. The guy didn't just want to rule France. He wanted to look like he swallowed Versailles. His robe had gold bees stitched all over it because bees symbolized immortality. Clearly, he wanted to sting his enemies with style. Peeing is a strategic sport in freezing landscapes. Holding in your pee at night actually makes you colder. Your body uses energy to keep that liquid warm. Solution? Brave the freezing night or use a designated pee bottle. Just don't mix it up with your Gatorade. Ever. Snow campers often dig pits inside their tents to trap cold air and create a warm air pocket for sleeping. But when 5 people breathe in a sealed tent, it turns into a human terrarium, and the place becomes a tiny sauna, complete with fogged-up walls and a vibe of group suffering. Being sad is part of the aesthetic. In the goth world, emotional breakdowns are practically fashion accessories. Crying under a full moon? Chic. Writing tragic poems with a raven nearby? Peak goth. Happiness is suspicious. Sadness is couture. Snow blindness is betrayal by sparkles. The sun reflecting off white snow can fry your eyeballs like laser beams. It's like being attacked by glitter from every direction. Forget your sunglasses and you'll stumble around camp, looking like a confused vampire at a rave. Some islands change citizenship like socks. The island of Merket in the Baltic Sea has a border so messy it's like someone doodled on a map. This tiny rock has switched hands between Sweden and Finland due to a lighthouse that was built in the wrong place. Locals joke that your nationality might change during your lunch break. Some landlocked countries have navies. Yes, you read that right. Bolivia lost its coastline in a war back in the 1800s, but it still has a navy. Why? To patrol Lake Titicaca. Nothing screams revenge fantasy like training sailors to one day get the ocean back. It's like owning swim trunks in the Sahara, just in case. Liechtenstein once accidentally invaded itself. This teeny-tiny, landlocked by landlocked countries has no military, but once its neighbor, Switzerland, accidentally invaded it during a training exercise. Instead of starting a war, the citizens reportedly offered the invaders drinks. It was the most polite invasion in history, no shots, just schnapps. The snake addiction was real. People would risk missing buses, failing exams, and burning dinner just to get a higher snake score. It was the OG mobile gaming addiction, and you had to master 90-degree turns like a digital contortionist. If your snake hit a wall, it wasn't just a game over. It was heartbreak. Ringtones were coded symphonies. Before MP3 tones, you had to compose ringtones manually using numeric sequences like some kind of tech Mozart. Your phone sang Beethoven in beeps, and if you got it wrong, it sounded like a robot crying underwater. And yes, we thought that was peak customization. Phone charms were a fashion statement of the past. Dangling trinkets from your phone was the 2004 equivalent of wearing a designer bag. Some were bigger than the phone itself. Your text message tone might be awful, but at least you had a glittery Pikachu swinging from your antenna like it was a fashion runway. Goth food is mostly beige, ironically. You'd think it's all black licorice and bat stew, but no. Most goths survive on coffee, toast, and existential dread. Some do dye their food black with squid ink or activated charcoal, though, just to remind their pancakes that life is pain. The language that whistles. In a mountain village in Turkey, people literally whistle their conversations across cliffs like chatty birds on espresso. Called kuş dili, this whistled Turkish is so detailed that villagers can gossip from half a mile away without a single breath wasted on actual words. Eavesdropping is an Olympic sport there. Piraha doesn't do past tense. This Amazonian language has no concept of time, numbers, or even specific words for colors. Ask someone in Piraha what they did yesterday and they'll respond like, "What is this yesterday you speak of?" It's like speaking to a time-traveling minimalist philosopher. Taya is basically human beatboxing. Ta, a language from Botswana, it has over 100 click sounds. Speaking, it sounds like someone trying to beatbox while chewing bubble wrap. Honestly, if you don't spit halfway through a sentence, are you even speaking Ta? Ancient Chinese emperors wore dragon robes with weather-controlling powers. Well, they thought so. These robes had specific dragon patterns and cosmic meanings that supposedly kept the universe in balance. So basically, the emperor was walking around in a royal weather app made of silk. King Louis XIV wore heels to look fabulous and intimidating. The Sun King made high heels fashionable because why should royalty touch the earth like peasants? His heels were red, his tights were tight, and his wigs could house pigeons. If you thought modern fashion was dramatic, Louis was the original runway menace. Medieval kings had underwear made of ermine fur. Yes, literal butt luxury, because what's the point of ruling half of Europe if your rear doesn't feel like it's being hugged by the fur of tiny snow weasels? Royalty didn't just dress to impress, they dressed to caress every inch, including the most royal cheeks. The squirrel terror of Brooklyn was a real danger. In 2020, a neighborhood in Brooklyn was under siege by one hyper-aggressive squirrel. Residents reported surprise ambushes where it leapt at people's necks, scratched their faces, and chased them down the street. No one knew why it snapped. Maybe it was just tired of being cute. A jogger in Germany was minding his business when a deer suddenly sprinted out of the woods, drop-kicked him with its front legs, and vanished. No warning, no motive, just a swift hoof to the chest. Forest justice is swift and deeply confusing. Want more wildlife moments that feel like they were scripted by a chaotic sitcom writer? Hit subscribe and check out our full video. Because sometimes nature doesn't hug, it throws hands or hooves. Boiling snow is a scam. You can't just toss snow into a pot and expect a magical full bottle of water. Snow is mostly air, so to get 1 liter of water, you'll need to collect a snowman's worth of flakes. It's like squeezing juice from a cotton ball. Frustrating, slow, and makes you question life choices. Ducks and fish can exist harmoniously in one backyard. In some parts of Asia, farmers practice rice fish duck farming. They flood rice fields, release fish to eat pests, and add ducks who eat weeds and poop nutrients. It's like hosting a chaotic animal house party that magically grows rice. Tomatoes above, tilapia below is a more beneficial combination than you think. In vertical double farming, people grow vegetables on floating rafts over fish tanks. The fish poop feeds the plants, and the plants clean the water. It's a poop-powered salad bar that recycles itself. Somewhere, an eco-warrior is weeping tears of joy. Elephants walk on their tiptoes like 6-ton ballerinas. Beneath that chunky foot lies a secret. Elephants walk on the tips of their toes with a big spongy cushion under their heels. It's like they're wearing orthopedic Crocs made of jelly, silently moonwalking through the jungle without a sound. Elegant giants, but with orthopedic flair. Sloths have feet that scream, "I quit." Sloths' feet aren't made for walking at all. They can barely walk on the ground and just flop around like a fallen yoga student. Their long, curved claws are strictly climbing tools, so touching grass is an Olympic event for them, complete with slow-motion drama. Ducks have built-in anti-freeze feet. Ducks waddle around icy ponds like it's nothing, and that's because their feet have a clever heat exchange system. Warm blood from their body heats the cold blood returning from their feet. It's like their veins are tiny radiator pipes. Webbed feet, but make it science fiction. In Ethiopia, bees and crops share the same plot. Farmers plant flowers and food together, letting bees pollinate while also producing honey. It's double-duty farming with buzzing productivity. You grow corn and get free sweetener too. Just don't anger the staff. Early icons were only 16 pixels, and that's right. Those adorable little images were basically cave paintings made of digital dust. Now, artists had to cram entire concepts like recycle bin or my computer into a space smaller than a sesame seed. Talk about pressure. The trash can icon started as a physical desk bin. In early Apple systems, the trash can was modeled after a real bin found in the designer's office. So yes, your deleted files go into a pixel version of someone's actual garbage receptacle. Very personal. Very weird. Clippy from Microsoft Office was technically an icon with anxiety. Clippy wasn't just an assistant, he was an animated icon trapped in your document like a hyperactive paperclip ghost who desperately wanted to help, but usually just ruined everything. Basically, the office poltergeist. Banana trees and coffee plants are grown side by side in some tropical areas because banana trees throw shade, literally. They protect coffee plants from sunburn, and coffee thanks them by not dying. It's a farming bromance stronger than most human friendships. People once used animal bladders to water plants. Yes, medieval farmers occasionally used dried animal organs as water storage devices. Imagine squeezing a pig bladder like a gross Capri Sun just to hydrate your carrots. It's hydration, but with horror movie props. In ancient Sri Lanka, kings built tanks the size of lakes, but these weren't for warfare. They were massive artificial reservoirs with stone-cut channels, engineered thousands of years ago, that irrigated fields better than some modern systems. Who needs sprinklers when you've got royal water bunkers? Some desert farmers use buried clay pots called ollas to guide the roots downwards. Fill them with water, bury them near the roots, and let the soil suck moisture out slowly like a thirsty vampire. It's eco-friendly and creepy efficient. Also imagine tripping over one and thinking you just unearthed an ancient urn. Artificial seeds can contain baby plants in gel armor. These seeds are basically plant embryos, also known as somatic embryos, wrapped in jelly-like goo made of alginate. It's like if plants had their own wombs made of seaweed. You're not just planting a seed, you're launching a botanical space pod into soil. Parrotfish poop out whole beaches out. That soft white sand you love sinking your toes into in tropical places? Yeah, that's fish poop. Parrotfish chomp on coral, digest the tasty algae, and excrete the rest as fine sand. One fish can poop out hundreds of pounds of beach per year. Fish are literally crapping vacation vibes. Some fish climb trees. The mangrove rivulis is a fish that jumps out of water, wiggles across land, and hides in trees like a soggy ninja. It can breathe through its skin and survive out of water for days. Basically, it's a fish that decided, swimming is so last season. The UK tried to leave colonies with style and debt. When Britain decolonized, it often left behind unstable governments and bizarre borders. In one case, they left Guyana with a constitution so confusing it triggered a civil crisis. It's like handing someone a car and removing the steering wheel for fun. Portugal clung to its colonies like an expired coupon. Portugal held onto African colonies until the 1970s, long after most other empires had let go. Their stubbornness led to years of brutal wars in Angola and Mozambique. It's the geopolitical version of refusing to leave a party you weren't invited to in the first place. The blobfish looks like depression with fins. Out of water, this deep-sea creature looks like a melted grandpa face and has become the poster child of I give up energy. But in its natural habitat, it's just a normal-looking fish. So it's not ugly, it's just a victim of air pressure and bad PR. Shrimp that punch louder than a gunshot. The mantis shrimp doesn't just punch. Its claw moves so fast it creates a shockwave louder than 200 decibels underwater, enough to shatter aquarium glass and stun prey. Basically, it's a tiny crustacean with the energy of a grenade and zero chill. Loud music can make cheese taste different. In one weird Swiss experiment, cheese was exposed to different genres of music. The hip-hop cheese reportedly tasted stronger than the Mozart cheese. So next time your cheddar sounds off-key, maybe it just needs better playlists. Exploding lungs at loud frequencies. If sound waves are loud and low enough, like over 180 decibels, they can cause actual lung rupture. In theory, a loud enough noise could literally turn your lungs into popcorn bags. So yes, there is such a thing as too much bass. Whales suffer from sonic confusion. Naval sonar tests have caused mass whale strandings because the intense underwater noise disorients their navigation. Imagine trying to walk straight while someone's blasting foghorns through your brain. It's like the ocean version of getting lost in a rave with no exit. Sonic booms can break windows and laws. Supersonic jets breaking the sound barrier have been known to shatter glass and startle cows into stampedes. Some places had to ban sonic booms because entire towns got jump scared out of their sleep, and one guy blamed it for spilling his soup mid-lunch. In 2000, people thought Y2K would destroy all technology. Computers were supposed to go berserk, planes were going to fall, and toasters were probably going to rebel. The clock struck midnight. Nothing happened, except for a record-breaking sale of bottled water and canned beans. Beethoven tried to cure deafness with ocean water and bark. As if losing his hearing wasn't tragic enough, Beethoven tried to heal it by pouring weird concoctions like hot oil, crushed bark, and even ocean water into his ears. Spoiler, it didn't work, but hey, he composed masterpieces while half marinating his head. Prince had a vault full of unreleased music, like actual treasure chest vibes. After his death, it was revealed that Prince had a secret vault in his Paisley Park home, stuffed with thousands of unreleased songs. Basically, he had enough material for albums until 3027, but decided the world wasn't ready for that much funky wisdom. Mozart wrote a whole song about butts. Known for his genius, Mozart also had the humor of a 12-year-old boy. One of his lesser-known pieces is literally titled Leck mich im Arsch, translation, Lick Me in the Butt. And yes, it was a real composition. Amadeus said high art can still be cheeky. Elvis had a pet chimpanzee that wore clothes and bit guests. His name was Scatter, and he dressed in snazzy outfits while causing complete chaos at Graceland. Guests feared him, the staff avoided him, and Elvis found it hilarious. The king of rock basically had a tiny ape bodyguard with a temper. Want more celebrity pet stories that sound like rejected sitcom plots? Smash that subscribe button and watch the full video, because nothing says rock and roll like a chimp in a tux chasing your guests off the lawn. Dolly Parton once entered a Dolly Parton look-alike contest and lost. She secretly joined the contest just for fun. Turns out people thought she looked too fake to be the real thing. Imagine losing a contest for being too much yourself. Only Dolly could out-Dolly herself and still smile about it. Some colonies were sold like used cars. In 1867, Russia casually sold Alaska to the US for just $7.2 million. During decolonization, this vibe continued. For instance, Denmark sold the Virgin Islands to the US in 1917 for $25 million. Apparently, some countries didn't decolonize. They just ran yard sales on entire populations. Paraguay has a secret shipping obsession. Despite having no coast, Paraguay has one of the largest barge fleets in South America. They treat their rivers like express highways to the ocean. It's like building a luxury cruise terminal in your bathtub and insisting it'll make it to Miami someday. Dream big, Paraguay. Dream big. Trichinosis is meat's sneaky revenge. Caused by a charming little parasite in undercooked pork, this disease can make your muscles ache, your face swell, and your stomach launch a rebellion. Basically, the pork you didn't cook well enough decides it wants to fight you from the inside like a gladiator in a protein-powered coliseum. Goths invented the art of sweating in style. Black velvet trench coats in July? No problem. Goths will risk heat stroke just to look like a Victorian vampire with a poetry degree. If you see someone melting like a wax candle while still looking majestic, that's goth dedication. Lojban was made by logic nerds. This constructed language was created to eliminate ambiguity. It's so logical that even arguments sound like math problems. Imagine saying, I love you in Lojban, and needing a calculator to explain your emotional algorithms. Chirping dolphins have competition. Silbo Gomero, a language spoken in the Canary Islands, is all whistles. Not kind of whistles. Full-on dolphin cosplay. If you're hiking and someone calls you in Silbo, you're not sure if they're saying hello or summoning you to a secret mermaid meeting. Artificial seeds are so synthetic that they can be made in a coffee mug. Okay, not literally, but the process of making them is surprisingly low-tech. Mix some growth hormones, swirl them in calcium chloride, and boom. You've got jelly baby seeds sitting in your kitchen next to the oatmeal. Some landlocked countries brag about their beaches. Hungary, for example, proudly markets Lake Balaton as the Hungarian Sea. Locals flock to this freshwater lake like it's the Mediterranean, complete with sunbathing, water sports, and the illusion that they aren't hundreds of kilometers from the nearest coastline. Imagination is powerful, folks. The world witnessed a smoking supercentenarian. An Indonesian man, Mbah Gotho, claimed to be 146 years old and smoked like a chimney till his last breath. Doctors were probably confused whether to warn him or just give him a Lifetime Achievement Award in stubbornness. Turkey vultures sniff out death like creepy wine connoisseurs. Most birds rely on eyesight, but not these guys. Turkey vultures have an acute sense of smell so sharp that they can detect the gas of rotting meat from miles away. Picture a bird swirling a glass of eau de décomposition and declaring, "Ah yes, aged 3 days. Delightful." For that smooth, youthful complexion, Roman elites reportedly slathered on face masks made from crocodile poop. Apparently, nothing tightens pores quite like reptilian feces. Imagine telling your spa esthetician, "Yes, I'd like the Deluxe Dung treatment, please, with extra croc." In today's world of luxury skincare, people are now rubbing snail mucus on their faces in the hopes of achieving eternal youth. Yes, snails, slime, on your face. Dermatologists swear by it, but let's be honest, at some point we just collectively gave up and said, throw the whole garden on my skin. The fizzing miracle berry. Miracle berries can make sour things taste sweet. Even lemons taste like candy. If there was ever a fruit that gaslit your tongue into eating a vinegar shot like lemonade, this is it. It fizzes in betrayal. Psychopaths often prefer bitter taste, like black coffee, tonic water, or extra dark chocolate. Scientists think this is because bitterness is linked to danger or poison, and psychopaths tend to enjoy things most people instinctively avoid. Basically, their taste buds are thrill seekers too. The USB pet rock existed. Yes, someone actually turned the original 1970s pet rock into a USB gadget that did absolutely nothing. It didn't light up, didn't store data, didn't even warm your coffee. It was just a rock with a USB cord. Proof that tech doesn't always mean progress. Sometimes it means, I dare you to buy this. Toothbrush with a built-in MP3 player was a sensation in the past. This contraption played music through your teeth using bone conduction. The idea was you'd enjoy tunes while brushing. In reality, it felt like your molars were hosting a rave and your gums didn't get the invite. Dental hygiene? More like a dental disco. Baby mop was an actual thing. Someone decided to solve parenting and cleaning in one go by turning baby onesies into floor mops. As your baby crawled around, they cleaned the floor with their tiny limbs. And it's either genius multitasking or mild child labor. Either way, your infant is now part of the janitorial staff. In multiple U.S. states, people have been arrested for driving under the influence, not in cars, but on lawnmowers. One man in Florida even tried to outrun the police on his ride-on mower after his license was revoked. Apparently, he thought mowing and fleeing were compatible sports. Spoiler, they are not. Inspired by J.R.R. Tolkien's beloved Hobbit holes, some people in New Zealand have actually built homes designed to look like the cozy underground abodes from The Lord of the Rings. These homes are often built into hillsides with round doors and windows, creating an actual fantasy world for anyone who wants to live out their Hobbit dreams. No dragons allowed, though. Clocky, the runaway alarm clock, played hide-and-seek with you. This adorable yet sadistic alarm clock rolls off your nightstand and hides when it rings. Want to hit snooze? Too bad. You now have to chase it across the room. Nothing like a game of hide-and-seek at 6 a.m. to make you question your life choices. Want your face on a slice of toast? Of course you do! This selfie toaster lets you upload your selfie and then burns it onto your bread. Because nothing says, start your day with self-love like chomping down on your own face. Breakfast just got narcissistic. Some people ship live bees in boxes, and surprisingly, they've done it for centuries. The packaging is incredibly important. Without air holes or the right temperature, the bees could become agitated and aggressive. Imagine getting a package of angry bees instead of your Amazon order. Sorry, sir, your iPhone is delayed because the bees are in a mood. In one European town, a row of sandbags was set up to keep floodwater out, but the crew accidentally completed the circle and trapped the water inside. It became a medieval-style moat around a bakery. The owners had to row their croissants to safety. In 1925, someone actually tried to ship a miniature replica of the Eiffel Tower from France to the US. The scale model was so big that it required a special ship and a custom-built wooden crate. Let's just say shipping giant landmarks wasn't exactly a logistics dream, and it took more effort than actually just flying to Paris and getting one yourself. In the town of Derinku, there's an entire underground city, and people still live in cave homes. These homes are carved into the soft volcanic rock, and the entire town could once house around 20,000 people. It's like living in a historical setting but with Wi-Fi. Talk about living the ultimate under-the-radar lifestyle. Every year in Jukkasjärvi, Sweden, they build an entire hotel out of ice and snow. From the walls to the furniture, it's all frozen solid. This place is so icy that even the beds are made of ice blocks. But don't worry, they provide thermal sleeping bags to keep you from freezing into a human popsicle. How's that for chilling out? The Filipino manananggal is a horrifying folklore creature. She is a beautiful woman by day, but rips her upper body from her legs at night, sprouts bat wings, and flies around drinking blood through a long tongue. Moral of the story? Always check if your new neighbor leaves half her body behind before renting next door. Apparently, shipping human bones for research purposes is a thing. In some places, bones are legally shipped across borders, but it's a nightmare for customs. Not only do you have to pack them well to avoid breakage, but the paperwork alone could make your head spin, especially when they ask what's inside the box. And you can't say human skull with a straight face. In Germany, a sweet-looking grandma was caught smuggling stolen luxury cookies under her coat in a high-end department store. Not just any cookies, gold leaf-dusted cookies. When asked why she did it, she simply said, "Because I wanted to feel dangerous again." Move over, Ocean's 11. Granny's got a sweet tooth and a dark side. Want more wild stories where grandmas go full rogue mode? Hit subscribe and watch the full video because cookie crimes and sassy seniors make for the most unexpectedly legendary heists. A team in the US once installed a stormwater drainage system upside down. So instead of carrying water away, it dumped floodwater straight into the streets like a reverse water slide. Local residents called it the city's biggest puddle party. It cost millions and solved absolutely nothing. These oversized pumpkins, sometimes weighing over 1,000 pounds, require special shipping. They're too fragile to be tossed around like regular produce, and packing them is like prepping an object for a trip to the moon. A broken pumpkin could be a mess of epic proportions, and if you thought shipping fruit was easy, think again. Yes, shipping volcanic ash is a legitimate thing, but it's not just a matter of scooping some ash into a bag. The risk of cross-contaminating ecosystems, not to mention its fine, powdery nature, makes shipping volcanic ash a logistical nightmare. Packages like these are treated with such delicate care you'd think they were carrying the last dinosaur egg. In Israel, a man successfully robbed 2 banks using an avocado. He painted it black, claimed it was a grenade, and threatened staff. Twice. He got away with thousands before being caught. Proof that if life gives you avocados, some people make guacamole and others start a crime spree. Yes, this is real. In 2012, thieves in Quebec stole over 3,000 tons of maple syrup worth around $18 million. They siphoned it from barrels like it was oil. For months, it was the stickiest investigation in history. Imagine having syrup trafficker as your criminal title. It's both delicious and disgraceful. Campylobacter is the ninja of food poisoning. It sneaks into your system from undercooked chicken and silently wrecks your intestines. It's like the stealth assassin of the meat world. No noise, no warning, just pure digestive sabotage. And if you're really unlucky, it can trigger Guillain-Barré syndrome, where your immune system gets so confused it starts attacking your nerves like it's playing dodgeball with your spinal cord. Bearded vultures dye their feathers red on purpose. Unlike regular vultures who settle for corpse chic, bearded vultures bathe in iron-rich mud to stain themselves bright orange. Scientists aren't sure why, but guesses include intimidation or weird bird fashion. It's basically the goth teenager of the scavenger world, but with a commitment to aesthetics. Condors puke as a defense weapon. When startled or threatened, condors literally projectile vomit their stomach contents. Not just because they're scared, but because the smell is so wretched it sends predators running. Imagine being so gross that your defense mechanism is targeted barfing. It's effective and utterly revolting. In one Malaysian village, a flood-resistant floating house was proudly unveiled as a marvel of innovation. But when the floods came, it promptly sank like a brick wearing lead boots. Turns out they forgot to calculate buoyancy. The house didn't float. It just pouted underwater like a depressed submarine. In parts of the Philippines, villagers built houses on stilts to prevent future floods. But one proud homeowner accidentally built his house so high that it got struck by lightning instead. Now, every time the flood rises, he just mutters, "Choose your fighter, water, or electricity." Grape soda plant, Monarda, smells exactly like grape soda. Native Americans used it for medicinal tea, but imagine biting into a leaf expecting Sprite-level fizz and getting grass-flavored betrayal instead. Startup for lifelong trust issues. Parrots can speak better than some toddlers. Some parrots, like the African gray, don't just mimic sounds, they understand context. One famous parrot named Alex could identify colors, count, and even express frustration. That's right. While some humans struggle with basic grammar, this bird was out here correcting people like a feathery grammar snob. They dance to music, with rhythm. Unlike most animals, parrots can actually move in sync with a beat. Scientists played music for a cockatoo named Snowball, and it started headbanging like a 2000 emo kid at a My Chemical Romance concert. The bird even switched dance moves mid-song. Someone get this bird a dance crew. The thief who left his name at the scene? In 2013, a burglar in Georgia broke into a house, stole a few electronics, then logged into Facebook on the victim's computer, and forgot to log out. The police didn't even need a search warrant. They just clicked, "About me." Congrats, genius. You robbed someone and tagged yourself. A man once got arrested for assault with ketchup. In Florida, of course, he squirted a bottle of ketchup all over his sleeping girlfriend out of jealousy. The charge? Condiment battery. That's right, this man weaponized fast food toppings. We're just one mustard duel away from condimental warfare. The donut disguise disaster. In Massachusetts, a man tried to rob a convenience store by wearing a donut box on his head as a mask. Problem? There were eye holes. But he forgot to cover the rest of his face. Security footage caught everything. He basically said, "I'm here to rob you, and also promote pastries." The goat heist. In Kenya, a man was arrested for allegedly stealing a goat and then trying to marry it. The village elders forced him to pay a dowry to the goat's owner. It made headlines as one of the most awkward criminal settlements in history. Imagine explaining that to your future kids. The lawnmower getaway. A Texas man attempted to flee the scene of a robbery on a stolen riding lawnmower. Top speed? About 5 miles per hour. Police didn't even run. They walked next to him and arrested him. Honestly, the slowest chase in history probably felt more like an awkward jog with a confused uncle. In Zimbabwe, an Australian backpacker decided to swim across the Zambezi River for fun, fully aware that crocodiles live there. He got bitten, but survived. His reason? You only live once. True, but that logic nearly made sure he didn't even live to tell it. Parrots can hold grudges. If a parrot doesn't like you, it won't just squawk. It will remember and plot. Some owners report parrots side-eyeing them for days after a vet visit, like feathery mob bosses plotting revenge. One parrot reportedly shouted, "I hate you," every time its owner passed. Passive-aggressive much? They can live longer than your mortgage. Certain parrot species, like macaws, can live over 80 years. So adopting a parrot isn't a pet. It's a generational commitment. Imagine being 90 and arguing with a bird that still mimics your ex's voice. That's not a pet. That's a sassy ghost with feathers. Some parrots get addicted to swearing. In a UK wildlife park, 5 parrots had to be separated because they kept encouraging each other to swear at visitors. The staff feared a profanity pandemic. Imagine walking through a lovely bird exhibit and being told off by a tiny feathered sailor with attitude. A man in England woke up after a wild night with YOLO inked across his forehead, all because his friend dared him, and he wanted to live in the moment. Plot twist. He had a job interview the next day. He did not get the job, but hey, YOLO. In Canada, a man tried to hug a wild moose for a selfie, whispering YOLO as he approached it. Spoiler alert, the moose chased him down. He wasn't injured, but the park fined him for disturbing wildlife. YOLO almost became "you obviously love obstacles." Hungary once had the worst inflation ever. Prices doubled every 15 hours. In 1946, post-war Hungary invented financial chaos by letting its currency, the pengo, spiral into madness. They printed quadrillion pengo banknotes. That's a 1 with 15 zeros. Eventually, they gave up and just started counting in mil pengos, millions of pengos, because math gave up too. One cult thought the world would end because of laundry detergent, the Japanese cult. Pano Wave Laboratory believed electromagnetic waves from washing machines and cell towers were destroying Earth. So they dressed entirely in white, wrapped everything, including cars and trees, in white cloth, and tried to warn the world. Unfortunately, the world was too busy doing laundry. There's a cult that believes their leader is the reincarnation of Jesus and Elvis. Somewhere in the American South, a small group follows a man who claims he's the divine fusion of rock and roll and resurrection. They celebrate Holy Communions with peanut butter and banana sandwiches, and Sunday services may or may not include karaoke. A cult tried to outlaw the color orange. The anti-orange movement was led by a group in Thailand who believed the color orange signified chaos and doom. They avoided orange food, clothing, and even sunsets. Somewhere, a carrot cried. Meanwhile, the cult's leader wore only neutral shades, as if beige could save the universe. Germany once had kids play with stacks of money instead of toys. During the Weimar Republic, hyperinflation in the 1920s, banknotes were so worthless that people made kites, wallpaper, and even used them as firewood. Children literally played with wheelbarrows full of cash. Parents would rather give them 10 million marks to build a fort than buy a toy. There was a cult that worshipped a flying spaghetti monster. Yes, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster is real. Started as a satirical protest against teaching intelligent design in schools, it somehow got legally recognized in several countries. Members wear colanders on their heads and believe heaven has a beer volcano and a stripper factory. Honestly, sounds better than some actual religions. Craving more bizarre belief systems that sound like they were cooked up during a late-night pasta binge? Hit subscribe and watch the full video, because nothing says divine enlightenment like carbs, chaos, and colanders. In Venezuela, inflation turned fried chicken into a luxury meal. By 2018, buying a rotisserie chicken in Venezuela could cost you millions of bolivars. Chicken shops posted guards because the value of a crispy drumstick was more than a month's salary. That's not lunch. It's high-stakes poultry. In Yugoslavia, salaries were paid twice a day. Hyperinflation in the 1990s was so bad that workers rushed out in their lunch breaks to spend their morning pay before it became worthless by evening. If you waited too long, your salary could buy you a pack of gum instead of groceries. Productivity, optional, urgency, mandatory. Sneezes can trigger other sneezes like a sneeze domino. Ever notice that if someone sneezes, suddenly everyone nearby does too? That's not a coincidence. That's photic sneeze reflex and group psychology teaming up. It's a sneeze chain reaction. And if you start it in a lecture hall, congrats, you've just gone viral in the most nasal way possible. There's a country inside a country inside a country. In Rome, Italy, lies Vatican City, an independent country. Inside Vatican City is a building that's part of Italy. It's like geographical Russian dolls, but with more politics, incense, and awkward border crossings for a bathroom break. Octopuses have 3 hearts, and they stop beating when they swim. Imagine going for a jog and your heart just yeets out of responsibility. Octopuses are like, I'll swim, but not without drama. 2 hearts pump blood to the gills, and the 3rd to the body. But when swimming, that one just checks out. There's a perpetual fire burning in Turkmenistan called the Door to Hell. Scientists set a gas crater on fire in 1971, thinking it would burn off in a few weeks. Joke's on them. It's still burning. It's like the earth itself had indigestion and lit a fart that never went out. You can get a camel kiss whether you want it or not. Some camels express affection by swinging their giant heads and nuzzling, or accidentally headbutting the rider. If you've ever wanted a face massage from a sand-scented wrecking ball, you're in luck. Salmonella is the foodborne drama queen. Found in raw meat and poultry, this little bacterial diva can cause vomiting, diarrhea, fever, and the realization that you're never eating steak tartare again. It's like your gut decided to host a chaotic dinner party without asking your permission. Goth clubs are just spooky hugs with music. You walk in expecting a vampire ritual, but it's mostly polite people sipping dark cocktails and complimenting each other's boots. The spookier they look, the more likely they are to say, "Oh my god, your eyeliner is flawless." A German town made wooden money during a cash shortage. During a post-World War I currency crisis, the town of Tenningen literally made money out of wood called Nachtgeld. It worked until termites got involved. Turns out when your wallet doubles as a termite buffet, the economy becomes an all-you-can-eat disaster. Sneezes were once thought to expel evil spirits. In ancient times, people believed sneezes kicked out demons trying to possess you. That's why everyone kept shouting, "Bless you." They thought you just narrowly avoided becoming the next horror movie protagonist, which honestly makes a triple sneeze way more intense than it needs to be. The 1995 Jumanji movie used actual real animals on set, briefly. For some scenes, they used real elephants and monkeys before switching to CGI, but things got so unpredictable that Wranglers probably aged 10 years in 1 week. Imagine trying to direct a monkey not to upstage Robin Williams. It's a losing battle. The cursed board game actually exists, kind of. After the film's popularity, a real Jumanji board game was made. Thankfully, it doesn't summon floods or carnivorous vines. But still, the dice move a little too easily. If your grandma disappears mid-turn, don't say we didn't warn you. Winter wolves can smell you from 1.75 miles away through snow. That's right. These fluffy snow ninjas have noses so powerful they could probably find your lost socks buried under a snowdrift and judge your hygiene habits while they're at it. Hiding from one? Good luck. They already know you skipped breakfast. The paws of winter wolves grow winter boots. Wolves don't buy Uggs when it snows. Their paws develop a thicker, coarser pad fur during winter, essentially turning them into silent, murdery snowshoes. Meanwhile, humans are out here slipping on icy sidewalks like malfunctioning giraffes. Jockeys can legally weigh less than a large Thanksgiving turkey. Professional jockeys often weigh around 108 pounds, which is less than a fully dressed holiday bird. This leads to absurd practices like sweating in saunas for hours and eating cotton balls to feel full, because nothing screams peak athleticism like pretending food is a ghost. In Mongolia, toddlers ride horses before they can walk properly. Mongolian kids don't wait for training wheels. They're tossed onto horses as early as 2 years old, because why crawl when you can gallop into adulthood? Meanwhile, toddlers elsewhere are still figuring out how spoons work. In Antarctica, scientists have to schedule grocery runs months in advance. By plane, forgot to buy eggs? Tough luck, you'll get some in spring. Errands at the South Pole involve planning, cargo flights, and praying the penguins haven't stolen your supply drop. It's less running to the store and more surviving the plot of a low-budget Arctic thriller. In Tokyo, there's a guy who runs errands for people, but only emotionally awkward ones. He literally gets paid to show up as a stranger to accompany you through situations like breakups, therapy, or buying embarrassing products. Yes, if you need emotional support to buy adult diapers at 2 a.m., he's your man. In rural Mongolia, herders ride camels for mobile banking errands. That's right, instead of standing in line at a bank, they ride across frozen steppes on giant, groaning fluff beasts just to pay bills. ATMS, internet banking? Nah. Real banking is when your ride has humps and spits. During the Prague Spring in 1968, when Soviet tanks rolled in, Czech and Slovak citizens didn't just throw rocks. They tried to fight off tanks with broadcasting equipment. They hijacked TV and radio stations to broadcast anti-occupation messages, outsmarting a literal military invasion with microphones and sarcastic commentary. Punk rock before punk rock existed. There was once a law in Czechoslovakia banning excessive whistling. Yes, because apparently someone was so aggressively cheerful or annoying that it became a legal issue. The government didn't want people whistling patriotic or mocking tunes in protest, so they cracked down on happy noises. Talk about dictatorship meets cartoon sound effects. And there you have it. Goats getting married, lawnmower getaways, crocodile daredevils, and parrots with the emotional range of a soap opera villain. From Kenyan dowry disasters to parrots that hold grudges longer than your in-laws. We've officially hit peak weirdness. If today's video didn't make you question humanity and fear birds just a little, were you even paying attention? So, before a parrot curses you out in 3 languages or a goat shows up in a wedding dress demanding alimony, smash that like button, subscribe for more bizarre brilliance, and ring the bell. Because here, reality is optional and weird is the main course. Catch you next time on Why Is This Even Real?
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
And here's the first one. Greece once paid people to retire in their 30s. For years, Greece handed out government pensions to people as young as 30 for arduous jobs like hairdressing. Wielding scissors near scalps was considered hazardous labor. Add some tax dodging and free spending, and their economy crashed like a drunk goat on a skateboard. In Venezuela, chickens were more stable than currency. During hyperinflation, Venezuelans began using chickens, eggs, and even bags of rice as money. At least poultry didn't lose value daily. One cluck from a healthy bird was worth more than 1,000,000 believers and came with a free breakfast. Winter wolves don't just howl randomly. They form howling choirs with perfect timing. They create harmonized howling concerts, spacing out their pitches to sound like a bigger pack than they really are. Basically, they're outsmarting enemies and hitting falsetto like furry opera singers. While we're layering up in thermal blankets and cursing the wind, winter wolves happily curl up in a snow pit, using their tails as scarves. They sleep in snow like it's a memory foam mattress. If snow were sentient, it would probably file a restraining order on wolves for inappropriate levels of comfort. Camel saddles can be elaborate torture devices. Some traditional saddles are wooden, spiky, and offer as much padding as a medieval bench. Now imagine riding that while your camel jogs like it's late for a date. Goodbye, spine. Hello, scoliosis. Camels can throw a tantrum mid-ride. If a camel decides it's not in the mood, congratulations. You're now on a 1,500-pound drama queen with the emotional range of a caffeinated toddler. They'll kneel suddenly, grunt like an old tractor, or just flat out refuse to move until you bribe them with snacks. Desert divas. North Korea once devalued its currency overnight and blamed math. In 2009, North Korea lopped off 2 zeros from its currency. Citizens were only allowed to exchange a small amount of old money, and the rest became worthless overnight. The regime said this would simplify calculations. Meanwhile, people starved, and rice cost more than logic. They use snowdrifts as trampolines. Winter wolves are known to leap high and dive into deep snow to catch prey underneath, like foxes and rodents. It's essentially a murder cannonball. Imagine peacefully sleeping under a snow blanket, and suddenly a 90-pound wolf faceplants you from above. Nature's version of surprise homework. Sneezes can trigger other sneezes like a sneeze domino. Ever notice that if someone sneezes, suddenly everyone nearby does too? That's not a coincidence. That's photic sneeze reflex and group psychology teaming up. It's a sneeze chain reaction, and if you start it in a lecture hall, congrats, you've just gone viral in the most nasal way possible. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle was supposed to be a sequel, not a reboot. The newer films weren't intended to overwrite the original, but to honor it. They even left subtle tributes to Robin Williams' character. But now, instead of jungle creatures in your house, you're stuck inside a video game with The Rock. Slight upgrade. There's competitive camel beauty pageantry with riding involved. In some Middle Eastern countries, camel beauty contests are huge, with prize camels worth millions. Riders must present them with regal poise and posture. One wrong bump and you've turned a catwalk into a camel rodeo. The original working title was Jungle Game Mayhem. Before settling on Jumanji, producers toyed with painfully literal names that sounded like rejected Nickelodeon shows. Jungle Game Mayhem sounds more like a tropical-themed obstacle course show hosted by a guy in a banana suit yelling "Extreme" every 5 seconds. They spit strategically. Camels don't just randomly spit, they aim. And yes, it's their stomach goo, not just saliva. So if you offend a camel mid-ride, say, by calling it a horse with humps, it might respond by launching a projectile loogie that smells like ancient curry and vengeance. Medieval knights needed cranes to get on their horses. Their armor was so heavy, up to 60 pounds or more, that mounting a horse looked more like a construction project. Forget dramatic battlefield entrances. Some of them probably needed a winch, a prayer, and a lot of groaning just to get upright. An ex-boyfriend showed up dressed as Batman to win her back. During a wedding in the UK, a man in a full Batman costume burst into the ceremony, yelling dramatic lines like, "Stop this madness." The bride reportedly told him even Gotham wouldn't want you before security escorted him out. Joker was probably more emotionally stable. Horses can sense your heartbeat from 4 feet away. That means your horse knows you're terrified before you do. It's like trying to play poker with a mind-reading lie detector strapped to a rocket. If you're nervous, the horse gets nervous too. Great. Now you're both panicking at 30 miles per hour. Victorian women rode side saddle in full gowns during fox hunts. Yes, they hunted wild animals while sitting sideways on a galloping horse, dressed like they were headed to a royal tea party. Temples in India are the Amazon prime of human hair. Devotees at temples like Tirupati shave their heads as religious offerings. But guess what happens next? That holy hair is collected, cleaned, and exported globally for wigs and extensions. It's a divine donation turned billion-dollar business. There's a clock that runs for 10,000 years. The Long Now Foundation built a clock inside a mountain that's designed to tick once a year and chime once a century. Because apparently someone looked at normal clocks and said, "Cool, but make it immortal." In 2008, a man was arrested for attacking a clock tower. In Italy, a guy threw a tantrum and climbed a clock tower, smashing it because he was sick of being ruled by time. Honestly, relatable. If you've ever hit snooze for the 5th time, you've probably fantasized about declaring war on your alarm clock too. A bear crashed a wedding in Colorado and stole the cupcakes. Imagine exchanging vows with a majestic mountain view, and then watching a 400-pound grizzly become your uninvited dessert reviewer. The bear ignored the main course and went straight for the sweets like Winnie the Pooh on a sugar bender. A skydiver in Florida accidentally landed in a wedding aisle. Mid-ceremony, a rogue skydiver missed his landing zone and plopped right into the flower path, scattering petals like a wind-powered flower girl on Red Bull. The couple paused, laughed, and the skydiver asked if he could stay for cake. Cuckoo clocks once featured inappropriate birds. Early German cuckoo clocks were sometimes modified by prankster artisans to make the bird do questionable gestures instead of just popping out and chirping. Imagine innocently checking the time and getting mooned by a mechanical bird with attitude. Japan used to have clocks that told time weirdly. In the Edo period, Japanese clocks divided the day into 6 segments for daylight and 6 for night. But since day and night changed with the seasons, the hours weren't consistent. So your 2 p.m. could be longer in summer and shorter in winter. It's like time was on a mood swing. There's a black market for celebrity hair. Obsessed fans have paid ridiculous amounts for even a single strand of famous hair. Elvis Presley's hair once sold for over $100,000. Beeswax is basically bee spit mixed with bee sweat. Yes, that lovely golden stuff you rub on your lips once oozed out of bee bellies. Bees have special wax glands that ooze wax flakes, which they chew with their mouths to soften. So next time you light a beeswax candle, know it's basically a scented spitball. It takes 8 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of beeswax. Bees are not running an efficient factory here. It's like trading 8 tubs of ice cream to make 1 napkin. Honestly, these insects need a financial advisor. Beeswax is so luxurious because bees run their production line like an overdramatic artisanal co-op. Beeswax was once used to preserve corpses. In the olden days, some mummies were sealed in beeswax to prevent them from smelling like ancient gym socks. Ancient Romans used beeswax as earplugs during sea battles. Because if you're going deaf from the sound of clanging swords and catapults, the obvious solution is shoving bug goo into your ears. Apparently death was fine, but tinnitus? Absolutely not. Imagine getting mugged, and the only thing the thief wants is your split ends. Hair mafias. Yep, they're real. And they're out here making high-stakes heists with nothing but scissors and nerve. Who knew your hair could be worth more than your phone? In Italy, a group of tourists joined a wedding thinking it was a parade. A loud Italian wedding in Rome, complete with music and confetti, was mistaken for a local street party. A dozen clueless tourists danced their way into the reception, took selfies with the couple, and even clapped during the toasts. Nobody questioned it because Italians love a good party crash. A goat walked in and headbutted the groom. At a rural wedding in India, a local village goat wandered in and, perhaps out of protest or pure goatish spite, headbutted the groom mid-photo. The bride laughed so hard she almost dropped her bouquet, and the goat became an instant legend. In Japan, tea ceremonies are so serious they can last 4 hours, and yes, you're supposed to sit still the whole time. One misplaced slurp, and you're basically socially exiled. Some ceremonies are performed in silence, with intricate steps that make assembling IKEA furniture look simple. Bonus, your legs fall asleep halfway through and you get a spiritual awakening. Or a cramp. There's a world's largest tea party record, held by over 32,000 people in India. In 2008, the city of Indore brewed up the world's largest tea party, complete with music, speeches, and a tea supply that could drown a mid-sized elephant. In a German festival, someone flew a 3D flying cow that terrified children. Among beautiful dragons and phoenix kites, one genius brought a disturbingly realistic inflatable cow into the sky. It mooed in the wind and rotated ominously, causing kids to scream. And one elderly woman to mutter, "The cow gods are watching." It was oddly majestic and utterly uncalled for. In Australia, a man attached sausages to a kite to feed the sky. Believing that the wind spirits were hungry or maybe just too into barbecue, one man tied grilled sausages to a giant delta kite and flew it over a beach. When one fell mid-flight and hit a sunbather, it sparked a debate. Is that assault or a divine snack drop from the heavens? One man ate Big Macs every day for over 40 years and called it love. Don Gorski from Wisconsin has consumed over 30,000 Big Macs since 1972, and even has receipts and diaries to prove it. He skipped only a handful of days, including once when a McDonald's was closed for a snowstorm. He says the sandwich keeps him healthy. Somewhere, lettuce is crying. A truck full of bull semen exploded. In Australia, a transport truck carrying canisters of bull semen caught fire. When the heat hit the pressurized containers, they exploded one by one, hurling bull love juice across the highway. Emergency responders said the scene was hot, smoky, and awkwardly sticky. A man in China was lifted 30 feet into the air by a giant kite. A volunteer helping with a massive kite launch didn't let go in time and was carried into the air like Mary Poppins' reckless cousin. In Thailand, people have kite fights that sound like musical duels. Traditional chula and pakpao kites have been used in sky wars for centuries, where competitors try to pull each other down. But these kites also make loud whistling noises when they fly, so it's less like a battle and more like aggressive wind flutes insulting each other in aerial opera. The guy who stalked a statue. In Russia, a man became so enamored with a bronze statue of a medieval queen that he visited daily, brought flowers, sang to it, and even proposed marriage in front of tourists. When authorities moved the statue for maintenance, he launched a Find My Queen campaign and filed a missing persons report for a statue. Bird poop face wash was once luxury skincare. In Japan, geishas used a cleanser made from nightingale droppings to whiten and brighten their skin. The poop is dried, ground, and sterilized because apparently someone said, "Let's take the one thing birds aim at cars and rub it directly on our cheeks for that porcelain glow." Charcoal cleansers made people think they were dying. Activated charcoal and facial cleansers and toothpaste became trendy, but users weren't warned it might turn everything black. Several people panicked when their teeth, gums, or even sinks turned pitch black, mistaking their bathroom mirror for a horror movie scene mid-cleanse. Fire cleansers. Because why not? In China, there's a fire facial where therapists light a cloth soaked in alcohol on your face, on purpose, then quickly extinguish it. The idea is to stimulate skin and rejuvenate cells. The idea is also apparently to flirt with third-degree burns for the sake of glowing cheekbones. A toilet made of Ming Dynasty porcelain almost fooled everyone. A man once bought a cracked garden ornament for 10 yuan at a flea market, only to find out it was a Ming Dynasty chamber pot worth over 100,000 yuan. Imagine discovering your dog's favorite pee spot is actually a royal urinal from 500 years ago. A teacup once bankrupted a baron. In the 18th century, a single Meissen teacup with hand-painted cherubs and gold trim caused a German baron to sell part of his land just to own it. Because, obviously, sipping lukewarm tea from anything less than a gold-kissed baby-themed cup was just peasant behavior. Pickle obsession led to a full-blown fashion line. In some parts of the southern U.S., the love for pickles became so intense that people began wearing pickle-themed clothing, from dill with its socks to pickle-flavored lip balm. One woman even carried a pickle in her purse for snacking emergencies. Her logic: you never know when you'll need the crunch. There's a Portland cement time capsule underwater. In 1938, engineers sealed a cement-filled time capsule in the Hoover Dam, buried so deep and hoped that it would take an apocalypse or a really angry mole to get it out. The Boston Tea Party wasn't about bad tea, it was about taxes and rage. Colonists dressed up as Mohawk warriors because historical accuracy was not invited, and dumped chests of tea into Boston Harbor in 1733. It was the sassiest no thank you to taxation ever recorded. Britain responded with angry letters. America responded with a revolution. Tea spilled, literally. Some people are addicted to eating toilet paper, soap, and chalk. Thanks to a condition called pica, certain individuals have developed a passionate, life-altering obsession with munching on inedible things. One woman claims she preferred the taste of toilet paper over popcorn during movie nights. Who needs butter when you've got 2-ply? In Death Note, Light's glasses glare with such villainous drama that animators gave it a dedicated lighting effect. The sparkle was timed to match his inner monologue, making sure you could literally see the evil intensify with each diabolical thought. There's a subculture obsessed with eating raw potatoes like apples. Some folks swear by the crisp, watery crunch of raw spuds as the ultimate snack. One man said it helps him connect with the earth. Most people say it helps connect you to food poisoning. But hey, who needs flavor when you've got starch and regret? A guy sent 65,000 texts after one date. A woman in Arizona went on a single date with a man she met online. What followed was a biblical flood of text messages, some declaring eternal love, others predicting spiritual unions and murder. He even broke into her house to bathe in her bathtub. Romance? Nope. This was Google Maps for red flags. A truck spilled live bees onto a highway. In 2015, a truck in Washington carrying millions of bees overturned, unleashing a biblical swarm onto traffic. Drivers were stuck in an accidental apocalyptic horror movie where the final boss was nature's tiniest flying chainsaw. Police had to call beekeepers as backup. Not SWAT, beekeepers. A celebrity stalker lived on the ceiling. Japanese pop star Ina Matsuoka had a fan so obsessed, he figured out where she lived by analyzing reflections in her eyes from selfies. He zoomed in, spotted train stations, and tracked her down, then waited in her building, hiding in a stairwell, and eventually attacked her. Sherlock Holmes would be horrified. Mayonnaise addiction has reached scream-worthy levels. In 2019, a woman on a reality show confessed to eating up to 2 jars of mayo a week, with a spoon. She dipped everything from cookies to fruit into it. Her love was so strong that she described mayo as the friend that never disappoints. The audience gagged, and the mayo industry quietly cheered. In rural England, a man stole dozens of socks from women's laundry lines, only to return them days later with handwritten love poems stuffed inside. One note read, "Your sock warmed more than your feet. It warmed my soul." Police dubbed him the Cotton Casanova. Some potteries are guarded like nuclear codes. The formula for true bone china was once so closely guarded in England that workers had to sign oaths and work in secrecy. One guy even smuggled the formula out sewn into his clothes. Not weapons, not treasure. Just a secret recipe for fancy clay bowls. Hound dogs were once trained to hunt humans. In strange chapters of history, especially in times of war or slavery, hounds were trained to chase people. Today, they chase squirrels and tennis balls, but their ancestors were basically 4-legged bounty hunters with floppy ears and no moral compass. Japan once served a squid ink pizza topped with mayo and octopus, because nothing says comfort food like an inky, tentacle-strewn monstrosity that looks like it crawled off the deck of a haunted pirate ship and onto your dinner plate. Bonus, it makes your teeth look like you've been eating coal. Sweden loves bananas on pizza with curry powder. Yes, someone looked at a pizza, then a fruit basket, and thought, you know what this needs? A tropical curry nightmare. It's basically a fruit salad that got lost in the oven and came out questioning every life choice made in Stockholm. Some people use jukeboxes to propose. Nothing screams romance like slipping a coin into a machine and praying it doesn't skip. A few brave or confused souls have proposed programming a jukebox to play love songs before popping the question. A pizza in Cambodia was topped with tarantulas. This isn't metaphorical, real, crunchy, spiders. It's like ordering a large pepperoni and getting a horror movie instead. A baby fell out of a window twice and the same man caught him both times. In 1937, a baby in Detroit fell out of a window and was caught by a man named Joseph Figlock. A year later, the same baby fell out of the same window and guess who caught him again? Figlock, the human trampoline. Either the baby was cursed or Joseph was the universe's personal save button. 2 identical twins were separated at birth and lived eerily identical lives. They were adopted by separate families, both named James. They both became police officers, married women named Linda, divorced, and then remarried women named Betty. They each named their dogs Toy and even smoked the same brand of cigarettes. A professional violinist once underwent brain surgery while playing her instrument to ensure surgeons didn't damage parts of her brain controlling movement. Imagine slicing into someone's skull while they casually shred Vivaldi like it's just another Tuesday. Russia once tried fish, pickles, and mustard sauce on pizza. It's as if someone spilled their entire fridge onto the dough and said, "Not yet. This is art." A true Cold War of flavors where each bite is a diplomatic conflict between fishy sadness and tangy regret. Bloodhounds can follow a scent trail more than 300 hours old. That's over 12 days of sniffing ancient gossip off the ground, like a canine detective with Sherlock Holmes-level obsession. You could leave your sock in a forest, and 2 weeks later, a bloodhound could still shame you with it. Goose pulling in Spain once involved tug-of-war dead geese midair. In certain Spanish villages, people used to ride horses and try to rip a hanging goose's head off while galloping. Yes, that was the game. While the goose is thankfully fake now, the tradition survives. Nothing screams village bonding like airborne poultry decapitation contests. The Mud Festival in Boryong, South Korea was created to sell cosmetics. Yes, an entire town hosts a giant muddy rave just to market skincare products. Basset hounds have ears so long they trip over them. Their floppy, floor-sweeping ears aren't just stylish. They help waft smells to their nose like little scent shovels. But evolution didn't think about stairs, so these pups often trip over their own luxurious earlobes while trying to catch criminals. Dignity? Optional. In Brazil, peas are a popular topping. Yes, peas. Those innocent green dots that usually suffer in school lunches are somehow front and center on Brazilian pizzas. The crust, cheese, and sauce are just a red carpet for these starchy little party crashers. Every slice looks like a veggie uprising. Some hounds are used to detect diseases like cancer and diabetes. Yes, while some humans forget their own birthday, hounds are out here sniffing your breath and diagnosing chronic illness. Imagine your dog judging your life choices and your pancreas at the same time. The pharaoh hound blushes when excited. This ancient Egyptian dog literally turns pink when happy or hyped. It's the only dog that behaves like an awkward teen with a crush. Imagine petting your dog and watching it go full tomato just because you said, "Who's a good boy?" There's a glow-in-the-dark pasta made with bioluminescent jellyfish extract. Yes, someone looked at pasta and thought, you know what this needs? The ability to light up like a rave in a bowl. Internet Explorer once got sued for being too free. Microsoft bundled Internet Explorer with Windows for free, which somehow enraged Netscape and triggered a massive antitrust lawsuit. Early browsers couldn't handle images at all. The first browser didn't even support images. If you wanted to view a cat photo, you'd have to download it separately and open it in a different program. Basically, every meme in 1991 required a college degree and a floppy disk. In the 17th century, there was a pasta shaped like little babies. Called gnocchi di latte, these horrifying dough babies were molded to resemble chubby infants. In 2016, a Canadian woman was kept alive for 12 days without lungs. Doctors completely removed both lungs due to infection and used a Frankenstein-level machine to oxygenate her blood. She was literally lungless, breathing with tech magic and raw Canadian stubbornness. The Hoover Dam claimed the lives of its first and last workers on the same date, 13 years apart. The first man to die during the construction of the Hoover Dam was George Tierney, who drowned on December 20th, 1922. The last fatality? His own son, Patrick Tierney, also died on December 20th. Coincidence? Or is the dam haunted by a dramatic calendar? Someone invented chocolate spaghetti meant to be served with whipped cream. Because nothing screams, "I'm confused," like having dessert and dinner wrestle on your plate. One moment it's a meal, the next it's a dessert meltdown. There's a fly that decapitates ants for fun. The phorid fly doesn't just sting ants. It lays eggs in their heads, and the larvae eats the brain from the inside like it's sipping a smoothie. After about 2 weeks, the ant's head just falls off like a party trick gone wrong. A surgeon cut himself open for a surgery in Antarctica. Soviet doctor Leonid Rogozov performed an appendectomy on himself in 1961 because he was the only doctor on the station during a blizzard. With a mirror, some vodka, and absolute steel guts literally, he cut himself open, removed his appendix, and then stitched himself up, like a one-man episode of ER on ice. The Vodoma tribe of Zimbabwe is known for having feet that look like bird claws, thanks to a genetic mutation called ectrodactyly. While it's great for climbing trees, buying shoes becomes a nightmare. Want more bizarre facts that'll make you say, "Wait, what?" Hit that subscribe button and let us know what freaky fact you want to hear next. Inbred rats forget how to rat. Scientists once bred rats in closed loops for generations, and the results were horrifyingly hilarious. Some forgot how to groom, others panicked when seeing food, and a few tried mating with furniture. It's like evolution hit the reverse gear and floored it. A 12-fingered Egyptian pharaoh couldn't grip reality either. King Tutankhamun was so inbred his parents were full siblings. He had clubbed feet, malformed bones, epilepsy. Finland's exercise lottery for commuters. Finland got so desperate to get people walking. Lottery system where pedestrians could win cash just by using crosswalks. Somewhere in Helsinki, someone probably hit the jackpot for jaywalking with purpose and a Fitbit. Americans spent more on diet books than on vegetables. In one absurd year, Americans spent more money on diet books and supplements than they did on actual vegetables. That's right. More people were willing to read about kale than actually eat it. Salad is scary, but Chapter 6 on celery spirituality? The bat fly is basically a vampire's parasite. Some flies have evolved to live exclusively on bats, clinging to their armpits like cursed living earrings. These little creeps are blind, wingless, and flattened like pancakes. Virgin hair is worth more than gold. It means hair that's never been dyed, permed, or chemically treated. This stuff can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In some cases, people have funded weddings, surgeries, or even down payments by lopping off a gloriously untreated ponytail. Portland cement wasn't made in Portland. Despite its name, it wasn't invented in Portland, Oregon, or even Portland, Maine. It was invented in England by a guy named Joseph Aspdin in 1824, who named it after the Isle of Portland, because the cement looked like the island's fancy stone. Yes, this whole global industry is named after a vibe. People used to think cement was alive. In early construction days, workers noticed that cement set faster in some weather. Instead of understanding chemistry, they assumed cement had moods or spirits. Some even whispered thanks to the cement gods after a good pour. Victorian tea parties had so many rules you'd need a law degree to host one. From how to fold your napkin to which direction to stir. Clockwise only, you heathen. Tea parties in the 1800s were so rule-heavy that guests often faked illnesses to avoid them. One lady reportedly got kicked out for lifting her pinky too high. It was the Olympics of passive aggression. The sandwich note stalker. A guy was obsessed with his coworkers' sandwich choices. Every time she brought lunch, he left anonymous, poetic notes about her turkey decisions and graceful mustard application. One day, he left a full diagram of her chewing habits under her lunchbox. HR did not find his mayonnaise haikus charming. Opera was once available on the Nintendo DS. Yes, that tiny handheld gaming console had a browser powered by Opera. You could surf the web using a stylus and a screen the size of a Post-it note. It was like trying to browse Amazon through a keyhole while wearing ski gloves. But hey, it worked. Barely. Japan has a waistline law. In Japan, it's literally illegal to be too fat if you're aged between 40 to 74. The Metabo law requires companies to measure employees' waists annually, and if they exceed the limit, they get enrolled in health counseling. Imagine your country being so fit-obsessed that your boss knows your waistline before your birthday. Mariah Carey's voice can shatter glass. Allegedly, her 5-octave vocal range is so extreme that it's been rumored her whistle notes can actually break glass. While scientists haven't confirmed this with a champagne flute sacrifice, people still duck when she hits those dolphin frequencies. Basically, she's a singing superpower with built-in sonar. Freddie Mercury's vocal cords didn't behave like normal humans. Studies show he may have vibrated his vocal cords in a way no one else did, and his growls and vibrato defied vocal physics. Björk once sang live with a full choir of robots. Known for her ethereal voice and bizarre performances, Björk took melodious weirdness to new heights by performing with robot backup singers. People auction broken pots for 6 figures, a cracked Korean moon jar, literally a pot held together by hope and glue, once sold for over $1.5 million. It was praised for its wabi-sabi charm, aka beautiful brokenness. Some royal pottery was never meant to be used. Napoleon once commissioned a porcelain dinner set so grand and gold-encrusted that guests weren't allowed to eat off it. The irony? Half the guests were starving soldiers. In the Philippines, spaghetti is made sweet with banana ketchup and hot dogs. This isn't an insult, it's a party dish. It's like someone dared every unrelated food item to show up in one pot, and somehow it worked. A woman survived the Titanic, Britannic, and Olympic ship disasters. Violet Jessup, a ship stewardess, was aboard all 3 of the RMS Olympic-class ships that experienced major disasters. She survived the Titanic's sinking, the Britannic's explosion, and a crash on the Olympic. Either she was cursed by Poseidon or was made immortal out of sheer stubbornness. The first browser was also a web editor. In 1990, the first ever web browser, World Wide Web, later renamed Nexus, let users not only view web pages but also edit and create them right there. The man who survived a spear through the skull? In 1848, a railway worker named Phineas Gage had a giant iron rod blasted through his head. taking out part of his brain like a kebab skewer of doom. Not only did he survive, but he stood up minutes later and chatted like nothing happened, though his personality did a backflip into chaos mode. There's a fly that drinks tears. The eye-licking fly sounds like it came from a horror film, but nope, it's real. It lands on animals' eyes and slurps their tears like emotional vampires. Some even drink from human eyeballs while you're asleep. Some flies do the moonwalk during mating. The Lispcana fly literally moonwalks on sand while trying to impress females. Michael Jackson would be proud. Sloths can't fart, so they burp backward. Sloths are too lazy to even let gas out the proper way. Their digestive gas gets absorbed into their bloodstream and released through their lungs. Yep, they basically exhale their farts. Fart smell can be used to diagnose diseases. Scientists are actually studying farts like fine wine to sniff out illness. Different bacteria make different gases, so a particularly funky toot could one day tell if you have colon issues. Termites are secretly eco-villains, farting up a storm and contributing to global warming. These tiny wood-munching demons release so much methane, it's like a biological greenhouse rave. Blue people of Kentucky were basically real-life Smurfs. A family called the Fugates turned blue due to a rare recessive blood disorder caused by, you guessed it, inbreeding. Instead of magical forest living, they dealt with constant questions like, "Are you choking?" Their condition was only cured when someone finally married outside the gene pool. Astronaut farts are dangerous in space. In a confined space capsule, one well-timed astronaut fart could literally become a flammable air hazard. Methane plus low oxygen plus enclosed metal tube equals potential butt-borne explosion. A man faked being mentally ill for 20 years to avoid taxes, not jail. Not work, taxes. He babbled gibberish during audits, claimed to be a potato, and avoided scrutiny so well, even psychiatrists were fooled. Turns out faking insanity takes more brainpower than just doing your taxes. A woman married the Eiffel Tower. She had a commitment ceremony and everything. She claimed the tower spoke to her emotionally and that it's the only one who understands. Honestly, the tower has seen a lot over the years, but probably not vows whispered to its girders. A man tried to rob a bank using a live beehive. No gun. Just bees. He flung the hive at the teller and demanded cash while getting stung himself. The bees, having no criminal loyalties, stung everyone, including him, and he ran out screaming. The Habsburg jaw was so powerful it had its own bloodline. Thanks to generations of royal inbreeding, the Habsburg family ended up with chins so long and jaws so misaligned they could barely chew. Charles II of Spain had such a tangled DNA mess that he could barely speak or eat, and had more genetic problems than a biology exam nightmare. Renaissance codpieces were basically fabric bragging rights. In the 16th century, men wore codpieces, padded, bulging, and sometimes bejeweled fabric pockets for their, manhood. Lady Gaga once wore meat, actual raw meat. The infamous meat dress was made of real flank steak. It shocked the VMAs and confused every butcher in America. Victorian mourning dresses had built-in tear catchers. Some mourning outfits in the 19th century came with tiny vials or stitched-in pockets to collect your tears. It's like carrying your emotional baggage. Psy's Gangnam Style made 0 sense and broke the internet. Horse dancing in elevators, people yelling at butts, and a guy screaming "Appa" in sunglasses. It became the first YouTube video to hit 1 billion views, proving humanity has taste. Just very questionable taste. The pizza bomber case. In a scene ripped straight from a failed Netflix thriller, a pizza delivery guy in Pennsylvania was forced to rob a bank with a bomb collar locked around his neck. He claimed he was a hostage. The whole situation ended in tragic confusion, a scavenger hunt, and a lot of FBI agents muttering, "What the actual..." The IKEA hostage situation. That wasn't really an abduction. A confused elderly man in Germany accidentally locked himself inside a display wardrobe and started screaming for help. Shoppers thought it was a hostage crisis. Turned out he just wanted to find the exit and a meatball plate. IKEA security now keeps an eye on overly curious grandpas. During 1996 in California, a man took a woman hostage at knife point and demanded a getaway car. She offered to drive. Instead of escaping, she took a wrong turn straight to a police blockade. Hakarl, rotten shark from hell, made with love in Iceland, is a fish that is buried, fermented, and hung to dry for months. This dish smells like ammonia and regret. Even Anthony Bourdain said it was the worst thing he ever ate. Icelanders say it's an acquired taste. Yeah, like chewing on Satan's gym sock. Aquagenic urticaria makes people break out in hives just by touching water. Yes, even their own tears. Imagine crying over how painful your allergy is and the tears join the attack. Life literally becomes allergic to your emotions. Bird's nest soup, the sticky, spitty luxury enjoyed in China and Southeast Asia. Made from the solidified saliva of cave-dwelling birds, this slimy soup is prized for its texture and alleged health benefits. Shirako is fish sperm sacs for dinner in Japan. When you're bored of sushi, Japan offers shirako, which translates to white children. It's the creamy reproductive fluid of fish, usually cod, served raw or lightly cooked. Because apparently someone looked at fish sperm and thought, that looks edible. Some unlucky souls have vibratory urticaria, meaning their body breaks out in a rash from movement or vibration. Jogging, rash, clapping, rash, riding a bus on a bumpy road, full body riot. Basically, your skin turns into a grumpy toddler if you dare have fun. Some people with prosthetic limbs have been able to trick their brains into thinking their prosthetics are real, giving them a near-perfect level of control over them. It's like having an invisibility cloak that lets you blend in and perform superhuman tasks without anyone batting an eye. Some people are allergic to working out, not just emotionally. Exercise-induced anaphylaxis can cause rashes, hives, and full-blown allergic reactions. Imagine being told, just a light jog will help. And your body goes, guess again, gym rat. Here's a swollen throat instead. The fruit cutting with a samurai sword genre exists. Whole YouTube channels are dedicated to slicing watermelons, Coke bottles, and occasionally raw chickens with katana swords in slow motion. It's like Iron Chef met Mortal Kombat. For some reason, the fruit never wins. Some blind musicians have developed an incredible ability to see music through vibrations. They can feel the rhythm and pitch of sounds through their fingertips, allowing them to play intricate pieces of music. It's like a superpower where your fingers become the new eyes. People roleplay as ants. Seriously. Entire channels exist where creators act out fictional ant colony dramas. There's betrayal, war, and food theft, but everyone's pretending to be ants. Dermatographia causes skin to puff up when scratched or touched, so lightly dragging a fingernail can leave words and doodles raised on the skin like cursed tattoos. Some people use it to write notes on their own arms like walking post-it pads, until the swelling kicks in. Cold urticaria makes people break out in itchy welts, or even go into anaphylactic shock when exposed to low temperatures. Snowball fights are death matches, ice cream is a threat, and air conditioning is a criminal. Elsa from Frozen would be their worst nightmare. The Sculpture Park, Helsinki, Finland, is an actual maze of sculptures. Among these artworks, you'll find pieces so bizarre that they could make your head spin. From large, abstract metal figures to odd creatures frozen in time, it's like walking through an outdoor gallery where the sculptures are staring at you, a bit too intensely. The Park of the Monsters, Bomarzo, Italy, is like an open-air nightmare you can walk through. It's filled with gigantic, terrifying stone monsters, dragons, and various other grotesque figures from mythology. It's essentially a real-life horror story where you stroll among screaming stone faces and devilish creatures. Perfect for the brave, or the slightly insane. In Incheon, South Korea, there's a park where kids get to interact with robots. But not just any robots. These bots are there to teach science and tech, turning the park into a futuristic nerd paradise. Forget the swings, folks. Who needs them when a robot's trying to teach you algebra? People with paraplegia, paralysis of the lower body, sometimes develop extraordinary upper body strength. It's not just from working out, it's a result of compensating for the lack of lower body mobility, turning their arms into powerful, muscle-packed tools. Who needs leg day when you're carrying all the power in your upper body? Some deaf individuals use tactile sign language where they feel signs with their hands, often in the palm of their hand or fingertips. This allows them to communicate through touch, and it's a bizarrely amazing way to ensure conversations happen without sound. No eavesdropping here. In soccer, players often exaggerate a fall or injury in what's known as flopping. While it's intended to deceive referees into calling a foul, it sometimes leads to real injuries. Imagine pretending to be knocked out by a phantom tackle only to trip on your own dramatic performance. Some players have even sprained ankles or fractured bones trying to make it look worse than it is. Tokyo has an unusual park known as Cat Street. Not a typical park, but an entire area where cats freely roam, and people can watch them wander and interact with each other. It's like a zoo, but instead of animals in cages, it's cats running wild like they're on a never-ending holiday. Take your camera, but don't expect to pet them. They prefer their independence. Golf is typically seen as a low-risk sport, but there's a peculiar injury known as the golf swing neck injury. In an odd twist, some golfers have hurt themselves by over-rotating their necks during a swing, leading to muscle strains or even pinched nerves. The irony? You're meant to be gently swinging a club, not trying out for the next action movie with your neck as the stunt double. People used to punch jukeboxes out of frustration. If your favorite song didn't play or the machine ate your coin, it wasn't uncommon to see people physically assault the jukebox. Yes, in the 1950s, jukeboxes were basically the emotional punching bags of diners. A hit song didn't always mean a good tune. It could mean someone literally hit the box. Some people take their popsicles in truly bizarre directions, like the garlic-flavored popsicle. Created as a culinary experiment in Japan, this popsicle is supposed to freshen your breath in a unique way. However, imagine the horror of indulging in a cold, sweet, frozen treat, only to have the taste of garlic punch you in the face like a vampire's worst nightmare. Some jukeboxes had fake records. To look impressive, certain jukeboxes had dummy records inside. So, while people marveled at the huge music collection, it was secretly a glorified music-playing scam. Imagine paying to play Bohemian Rhapsody, and the machine spins a record labeled Queen that's about as real as a toddler's tea party. If you enjoy feeling like your mouth is on fire while simultaneously refreshing yourself, then the spicy mango popsicle is your dream come true. Combining the sweetness of mango with an intense peppery kick, these popsicles are all about turning the traditional treat on its head. It's like someone had the bright idea to make your tongue go from summer chill to scalding heat in one frozen bite. Perfect for the brave or crazy. Looking for a popsicle that matches your goth soul? Enter the charcoal popsicle, a frozen dessert made from activated charcoal. This popsicle has a dark, almost sinister appearance. Not to mention that it's marketed as a detoxifying treat. While it's supposed to help with digestion, it might also leave you questioning your life choices while munching on a black popsicle. Because who doesn't want to ingest a little charcoal for fun? Björk once danced with robots in a breakup song. In All Is Full of Love, Iceland's Queen of Weird sings about heartbreak, while two androids make out and assemble each other in a sterile lab. Nothing says emotional healing like cybernetic seduction and mechanical nipple bolts. OK Go filmed an entire music video on a zero-gravity plane. In Upside Down and Inside Out, the band performed choreographed chaos while floating midair, flinging laptops, balloons, and piñatas around like kids on sugar highs in space. NASA watched and said, "We'll stick to science." One of the most unusual injuries in soccer history occurred when a player, while celebrating a goal, accidentally ran into a moving lawnmower on the field. The mower had been trimming the grass, and in his excitement, the player sprinted toward it, tripping and getting a nasty cut. Imagine that. Celebrating your goal only to end up in the emergency room with a mower-induced injury. Some fish use farts to communicate. The herring, aka bubble butt of the sea, talks by blowing bubbles out of its rear end. Scientists even call it FART, fast repetitive tick communication. It's like Morse code, but stinkier and way more immature. Some lucid dreamers use their dreams to practice martial arts. Yes, full-on dream kung fu. They train like they're in the Matrix, kicking imaginary villains while their real body lies limp like a tofu block. The only side effect? Waking up sore from punching air and still getting winded by stairs in real life. People used to rig jukeboxes with toothpicks. In a legendary act of musical rebellion, folks would jam a toothpick in the coin return slot to get unlimited plays. This turned jukeboxes into musical fountains of theft. Italy banned too skinny models for national pride. Italy, the land of pasta and fashion, once decided models had to prove they weren't underweight to walk the runway. That's right. After inhaling 14 bowls of carbonara, they still expect you to be healthily thin. National image matters, even if it contradicts the national cuisine. Bhutan banned tobacco before junk food. Bhutan, obsessed with gross national happiness, decided smoking was so evil it banned all tobacco sales. But junk food? Totally fine. So while you can't light a cigarette, you can deep fry yourself into oblivion with cheese and chili-laced rice. Enlightenment, but make it cheesy. The hoverfly pretends to be a wasp, but it's just a nerd. Hoverflies wear wasp costumes like cosplay at a bug convention, hoping predators get confused. They don't sting, bite, or do anything badass, just buzz around like, "Please don't eat me. I'm emotionally fragile. One man trained himself to eat only salads in lucid dreams, hoping dream lettuce would cancel out his real-life cookie addiction. Sadly, lettuce in dreams is as effective as punching calories with love. At least he didn't dream of kale. That's just psychological torture with chlorophyll. Gibraltar Airport has a runway that crosses a public road. When a plane lands, traffic stops like it's waiting for a train, except it's a 90-ton flying metal tube. Miss your flight. Blame the red light. It's the only airport where your boarding pass competes with the traffic signal. The Denver International Airport is infamous for its evil blue horse statue with glowing red eyes, lovingly nicknamed Blucifer. It even killed its own sculptor. Add to that underground tunnels, conspiracy theories, and murals that look like post-apocalyptic kindergarten art. Welcome to the Illuminati's favorite baggage claim. In Switzerland, there's a parade called the Chalandamars, where kids walk around clanging giant cowbells to scare winter away. Nothing like being 10 years old, ringing doom bells and yelling at snow. Basically, it's a blizzard exorcism with a soundtrack of chaotic cow metal. At Barra Airport in Scotland, planes land directly on a beach. Yes, a real sandy, seagull-infested, occasionally soggy beach. Flight schedules depend on the tides. If you hear, "Your flight is delayed due to crabs," they're not talking about mechanical issues, it's literal crustacean interference. The Don Mueang International Airport in Thailand has a golf course between its runways, so golfers have to play with jumbo jets roaring overhead. If you slice your ball into a Boeing's path, you better hope your caddy has a pilot's license, or at least a decent insurance policy. Spain hosts El Colacho, where men dressed as devils jump over babies. Yes, real tiny humans. It's supposed to cleanse infants of original sin, but mostly looks like Satan auditioning for a parkour team. Imagine being 6 months old and already in your first demonic Olympics. In the Philippines, the Parada ng Lechon celebrates roasted pigs by dressing them up in wigs, sunglasses, and even dresses. They're paraded like celebrities before being eaten. It's both a fashion show and a food coma. Somewhere, a pig is praying it gets chosen for the runway over the rotisserie. Desert frogs have this ultimate survival hack. They bury themselves in dirt and wrap up in a mucus cocoon, going full nope on the summer heat. It's like their version of an extreme spa retreat, only it's all about slimy snot survival underground. There's a wine made with baby mice in Korea and China. It's literally baby mice drowned in rice wine, aged to perfection while looking like a crime scene in a jar. Locals claim it cures ailments. Outsiders claim it causes them, especially psychological trauma and trust issues with beverages. President Calvin Coolidge liked having Vaseline rubbed on his head while eating breakfast. Nothing says "I'm in charge" like being greased up like a Thanksgiving turkey while chomping toast. Truly, the epitome of bizarre ritual. Franz Kafka used to laugh while reading his own depressing stories aloud. His work is famously gloomy, but the guy treated his own existential horror like stand-up comedy. Imagine someone giggling while reciting The Metamorphosis. Nikola Tesla was obsessed with the number 3 and would circle buildings 3 times before entering. He also hated jewelry and pearls. Basically, he was a genius who lived like a haunted Roomba with trust issues. Snake wine is a thing. In Vietnam and China, people drop entire venomous snakes into rice wine bottles. It's supposed to boost vitality, but it mostly boosts nightmares. Bonus: the venom's neutralized by alcohol, unless the snake wasn't dead. Yes, there are reports of snakes waking up in the bottle. Cheers. Tenzing Hillary Airport in Nepal has a runway that ends in a cliff. It's often ranked the most dangerous airport in the world. Basically, if your pilot sneezes too hard on landing, you could end up paragliding without a parachute. But hey, the mountain view's great. Right before impact. Camels don't sweat until things get really spicy. Their bodies can soar to 41 degrees Celsius before a single drop falls. It's like their version of holding in a sneeze, except it's sweat, and they're avoiding dehydration while looking like they just walked off a desert runway. Kangaroo moms lick their forearms like they're trying to seduce the heat away. Turns out, it's their personal air conditioning. Evaporation cools the blood vessels near the skin. Basically, they're sweating through spit while looking impressively unbothered. Victorians wore jewelry made from dead people's hair. Yep, locks of Aunt Mildred were twisted into brooches, rings, and even necklaces. Imagine being complimented and having to say, "Thanks, it's Grandma." Creepy? Yes. Sentimental? Also yes. Sanitary? Debatable. There's a ring made from moose poop in Canada. Locals polish it, varnish it, and proudly sell it as wildlife treasure. Romantic? If your idea of true love involves fecal nuggets wrapped in metal, great icebreaker. Just don't say what it's made of until after dinner. Some rings are made from human teeth. That's right. People turn lost molars into statement pieces. It's either a bold fashion choice or a threat to dental hygiene. Perfect for saying, I care deeply about you and also collect enamel. Early computers used literal women as processors. Before machines, computers were human, mostly women, who crunched numbers for science. So basically, NASA's rocket math was powered by unpaid Excel spreadsheets and skirts. The first mouse was made of wood. Yep, it looked like a chunky wooden block with a cord, like something you'd find in your grandpa's toolbox. Not on a desk. Smooth? Not so much. The ENIAC needed 18,000 vacuum tubes and could fry eggs with its heat. It was so hot, it doubled as a toaster. If you didn't solve the equation, you at least got breakfast. Early computers were so big, they had addresses. Some were housed in rooms the size of gyms and were mailed instructions on punch cards. Basically, your grandma's smartphone now has more power than a building-sized diva from the 50s. Exploding head syndrome is real and sadly not as cool as it sounds. It's a sleep disorder where people hear a loud bang in their heads when falling asleep. No damage, just pure jump scare terror like your brain decided to slam a door for fun. Tree man syndrome turns you into a bark-covered nightmare. Caused by HPV and immune failure, sufferers grow wart-like growths that look like gnarled roots. Basically, Mother Nature installs her own software updates, without your consent. Zoysia grass is the slow poke of the lawn world. It takes forever to grow, but then refuses to die. You could drop a volcano on it, and it'd just smirk and spread a little more. It's like your stubborn uncle. Doesn't rush, doesn't leave. Lemongrass, the spa treatment grass with ninja roots. Smells heavenly, repels mosquitoes, makes soup fancy, but plant it in your yard and it'll take over like it's reenacting the Hunger Games. Peaceful by scent, violent by ambition. Soup number 5 is basically a love potion made from cow testicles. A Filipino delicacy, this meaty madness is believed to boost virility. It's the only dish where you can say, wow, I can really taste the testosterone, and not be metaphorical. Bat soup exists, and it looks like a horror movie with broth. Popular in some island nations, it features an entire bat. Wings, fangs, and all, just like soaking in a bowl like it's on a spa retreat. The flavor? Smoky and flighty. The March of the Gnomes in Belgium features adults in full gnome cosplay, complete with pointy hats and fake beards, parading through town like a mushroom rave gone rogue. It's like Snow White's sidekicks got into craft beer and decided to start a rock band called Grumpy and the Garden Tools. Netscape Navigator was so big that it went public before making money. In 1995, Netscape went public with a stock offering so hyped it triggered the dot-com bubble. They hadn't made a dime, but people were tossing money like it was a casino. It was the Silicon Valley equivalent of investing in an air sandwich because someone said it tasted like Wi-Fi. There's pasta shaped like human organs for anatomy classes. Yes, there are anatomically correct pasta noodles shaped like lungs, hearts, and even intestines. And that's a wrap on this beautifully bizarre episode of Wait. What did I just learn? We had swole upper bodies, whispering hands, Oscar-worthy soccer dives, and feral Tokyo cats living their best influencer lives. Meanwhile, golfers are out here spraining their necks like they're filming Fast and Furious, Country Club Edition, and jukeboxes are still emotionally recovering from the 1950s. If that didn't make your brain do a somersault, I don't know what will. So here's the deal. Hit that subscribe button like it owes you money, like the video if you've ever fake limped for attention. We won't judge. And drop a comment telling us the weirdest fact you've ever heard. Seriously, the weirder the better. We might feature it next time. Catch you in the next one, legends. Until then, protect your necks and respect the jukeboxes.